The following is a WDW News Today original program.
Time travel commencing in T-minus 10 seconds and counting.
It's once again time to go back in time as we head back to the future on the WDW News Today podcast. Let's set our time coordinates for this week's trip through Disney Parks history with Professor Tom Corliss.
I don't mind, but you better promise me I'll be back in time.
It's time to go back!
Where, Tom? Where?
Back to the future, Scott! Which is sadly not a movie we'll be covering this evening. In order to better understand where the Walt Disney World Resort is heading, which is to hell according to most people currently, we
Mostly
look back at soon-to-be past attractions and current favorites. And it's a perfect job for me because I love attractions. Joining me for the segment, you just heard him, Scott Smith.
Hello there.
Very fitting with the whole dinosaur Back to the
Hello
Future
there.
opening. What are you holding?
Exotic butters.
What is exotic butters?
Exotic butters.
What are they?
People, it's obviously a basket of exotic butter.
This
Anyone in the
is more
chat who gets that, shout it out.
This is more confusing than a modern Mickey Mouse short replacing the Great Movie Ride. Anyway, Ron Deanna.
Aloha.
Nicholas Cicero over there in the other room.
Yeah, great to be here.
You don't even have your camera.
Yeah, I do.
I don't see.
Oh.
Great to be here, even though I'm
His
totally not
camera's
actually
not
here.
on.
Whoops. How'd that
Ron, what
happen?
shirt are you wearing?
It's something I made. It's my Muppet Vision gives me a full-on double sweet.
Sweden?
That's. You thought my exotic butter references were
Is your
weird.
shirt not closed for asbestos right now? We won't get into that tonight.
Well,
There's Nick.
hey, yeah. Me,
Yeah, they closed Muppet Vision for asbestos. by the way.
No.
Jason Diffendahl,
Hey, howdy, hey.
David Smith.
Hey everyone, I have no ambiguous references for you tonight.
I think Marcy.
Get out.
Is Marcy Smith here now?
Marcy is. I see her.
There's Marcy. And Ashley Jasmer, who's wearing a very fancy t-shirt.
I am.
It's Make the Movie Ride Great Again. Or
Hi.
maybe we'll just have to cross out the great and just make the movie ride
Again.
again.
Actually, just, yeah, even if they made it
Bring it back.
mediocre again, I think we'd be happy.
Oh. Anyway, so with the Great Movie Ride closing in less than 2 weeks' time, we decided it was a good time to go back in time and cover the Great Movie Ride. So let's go ahead. Let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in. We're going back to the early 1980s.
I bet it's going to start with a pavilion at Epcot.
Oh, jeez. Yes, and back to the early 80s when Jason still had a full head of hair.
Whoa.
Yeah. That was the early 80s.
Well, that's where we are.
That was the early 80s, yes.
Weren't you born in the 80s in fairness?
No, I was not born in the 80s.
Oh, 70 something.
Wow, just keep going, Tom.
Something.
I'm on a roll.
Yeah. Just
Wow,
keep
you're
going.
old.
Start the show, please.
You should be replaced with a contemporary Mickey attraction
That's fine.
or the Guardians of the Galaxy.
That would be fine, too. Whatever you want.
Anyway, in the early 1980s, a team of Imagineers led by Marty Sklar and Randy Bright were given an assignment to create 2 new pavilions for Epcot Center's Future World. The results of their brainstorming rendered 2 new ideas: the Wonders of Life and another thing called Great Moments at the Movies. Both attractions were developed in the original spirit of Epcot Center to educate guests in an entertaining manner. And the plans for Great Moments at the Movies would eventually catch the eye of newly appointed Disney CEO Michael Eisner, but we're not there. Originally planned to be placed between the Land and Journey into Imagination, which is now Soarin', which you can't even walk that way, but Soarin's basically in that plot. The Great Movie Ride, or as it was known then, again, Great Moments at the Movies, Pavilion was designed to look like a movie set backdrop. Yeah, look at That would have fit in great with the rest of Future.
That actually kind of looks like the Soarin' building.
Just get the clouds off.
Yeah.
Oh, and they could have moved the kitchen cabaret entrance like just over to there, right?
I always just thought that was like the facade they were going to put up while they were building the thing.
Nope, that's the actual facade. Glass pyramid, glass volcano looking thing, giant geodesic sphere, painted flat. would have been quite the pavilion. With a soundstage background and a small ticket booth entrance, the falseness of Hollywood was embraced in the project's facade. By design, the ride was meant to give guests an insider's look into the magic of film. In this surreal, time-bending setting, the audience would not only experience a film, but live it. It would be like riding the movies. Ever heard that before? As the Disney company made many corporate changes in the early 80s, they greatly expanded their number of productions and needed more real estate to make all these projects reality. And instead of buying expensive land in California, they decided to make use of the wealth of land they had in Central Florida. This would make sense as well if they were going to try and beat Universal at their own game before they could open in Orlando. It also made sense to make new production facilities on land they already owned and put it in the middle of the world's vacation mecca for all to see. Not only would the productions bring in profits, but guest ticket sales would also make the company a fortune and keep guests staying at Walt Disney World for a longer period of time. Now we do that with gondolas.
Not sure what makes the company a fortune.
Forget new parks, gondolas, and an Uber-like service is where it's at. There was one serious problem, however. At the same time Disney was developing their movie studios park, of course, Universal was looking to head east. The company that inspired Walt Disney to want to build a backstage tram tour was looking to build one in Florida since starting in 1979. So long before even they were drawing up plans for the movie ride pavilion, Universal was already looking to open something in Orlando. And facing the impending announcement and construction of Universal Studios Florida, Disney decided they had to be the first movie studio park announced and built in Central Florida. As the projected construction costs of the Central Florida Entertainment Complex climbed from $100 to $170 million, MCA Incorporated's chairman Lou Wasserman began turning to other studio heads looking for possible financial partners when it came to Universal City, Florida, which is why on July 29, 1981, MCA officials presented their plans for the proposed Orlando studio tour attraction to Paramount executives. Now, to this day, Michael Eisner insists he was never at this Universal City, Florida informational presentation, but other people who took part in this 2-hour meeting, which was held in the Jack Webb Bungalow on the Universal Studios Hollywood lot, remember things differently. As Peter Kingston, who was then an MCA development executive, recalled in an April 1989 interview with the LA Times, quote, Michael Eisner was definitely there. It's the only time I've ever met the man. He asked very intelligent questions. I was very impressed by his grasp of the subject and equally his interest in the subject. So here's the short story is, for Epcot, they're designing this Great Moments at the Movies Pavilion. Eisner comes in 84, sees this, knows of the Universal plans, and goes, we should build a park around this ride. And that's how the story begins. And everyone had something to say about it.
Well, so you're saying that it goes deeper than this being in the park icon. This attraction was the reason for this park.
It was the only thing developed. So Eisner comes in and they know Universal's going to build. And here's a ride that's already in development. Literally, there's concept art and people working on this project. So instead of, a backlot tour is a lot easier to create. You buy vehicles, you put movie props out, you build fake sets and things. But here's this e-ticket ride that they've already started work on. It's already just about ready to roll for Epcot. So it's not hard to be like, well, we're going to move this over here and do it in this space. And that's kind of what happened.
And coming at it from the other direction, from the Epcot side, I think it was a good decision that this happened. I don't know if they intended it this way, but I never felt like a movie ride in Epcot made much sense to begin with, because Epcot's basis is grounded very much in reality and what human achievement is in the real world, whereas Hollywood is probably the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So I think from an Epcot theming viewpoint, it makes a lot of sense.
Wasn't it always looked at as almost as if it was an expansion of imagination, though? I had heard that said many times.
It was, yeah. I mean, it sort of was, but again, it's such a tightly focused art form that I'm glad it didn't end up there.
Okay.
We have
But,
Guardians of the Galaxy now. Who cares?
It's a different time now.
That's right.
But yeah, back then, I guess. But it did make sense next to imagination, because I think the whole way they were going to approach it was, we use our imagination to create these worlds that don't exist and present them in film. And even the finale, or there was a portion of Journey to Imagination that addressed the arts, and film was one of those arts. So, I mean, it wasn't a huge stretch. So the interesting thing that happened is after Universal found out Disney would be able to open a movie studio park and tram tour before they would, they reached out to Disney and asked if perhaps there was a project they could team up on. Instead of competing with each other with similar attractions, perhaps Disney Universal could put on an incredible attraction, the likes of which had never been seen before. It's important to not forget that Universal was not in the theme park business in 1985. Universal Studios Hollywood was an attraction, but was truly a working movie and television studio in Hollywood. Instead of taking a shot at competing with Disney in Florida, it probably made more sense to just try and work with them and make some guaranteed money. Undoubtedly, Universal Studios was more synonymous with movie making than the Walt Disney Company. Disney could benefit from having the Universal Library, including recent hits. We're dating ourselves here. Recent hits like Jaws incorporated into the project. Outside of animation, the Disney studio had never been the powerhouse consistently that Universal was, and certainly did not have the same massive film library. And Universal was interested in a royalty-based arrangement with Disney for the park. However, Disney had already received a better deal from another legendary movie studio. And here's where Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer comes in. Scott's banging on some plastic.
And look who's where now.
Anyway, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer comes in, and Disney could obtain the theme park rights to use the MGM name and logo, as well as several of the more famous films from their library, such as The Wizard of Oz, Singing in the Rain, Footlight Parade, the James Bond 007 film series, and many more for a one-time fee. And instead of paying annually in one purchase, Disney could have all of these legendary films in the park and still keep Universal out of Orlando. I like the way Mr. Eisner did business.
Yeah, look at him now. MGM's not even on the marquee anymore, and Universal is making a crap ton of money. So
yes, because Volcano Bay is going so well.
Yeah. Well, how well is MGM going, Tom?
Oh, well,
Yeah,
they just decided that's what they want to do. We're not going to get into this now. The other reason Disney liked the idea of putting another studio name on its park is simple. Having multiple studio names in the park would make it easier to tie in other franchises not belonging to Disney into the project. Wow, how times have changed. Such as Star Wars and Indiana Jones. The last time we did this Back to the Future, they did not own those. There would then be less confusion to if these are Disney franchises. Or later on, you could just rip all the other franchises out. It's up to you, I suppose. Anyway, Michael Eisner announced plans for the Disney MGM Studios theme park publicly in '85 as the Disney MGM Studio Tour. That was the name of the park, the Studio Tour. Ground was broken on March 27, 1986. The park's initial opening date set for 1988, but the goal was far too unrealistic. Eventually, the date was pushed back a year so more could be built and completed. When Disney struck the deal with MGM to co-brand the studios, a number of MGM-owned films were incorporated into plans for the great moments at the movie attraction. Overall, Disney would strike deals with MGM, Fox, United Artists, Warner Brothers, and Paramount to use film footage in the attraction, as well as the right to build scenes and animatronics around some particular films. The ride system was decided, again, kind of to help with the development time, would be a simpler version of the one created for the Universe of Energy at Epcot. We'll get to that next week. They would steer and stop themselves, but a human could control and modify the speed at which they travel. Like Energy, induction plates would charge the 48-volt onboard vehicle batteries when stationary, And the carts would trigger 17 floor sensors that would activate scenes and effects along the ride. On peak days, the attraction could run 10 vehicles simultaneously with 64 to 70 guests leaving every 2 minutes and 40 seconds. The attraction would also have many firsts, a host who would control vehicle speed all while interacting with human actors and audio animatronic characters alike. This had never been done before. Of course, they had the Jungle Cruise, which had a human host, but they weren't interacting with other humans, and Jungle Cruise really didn't have audio animatronics that talked to them. Although in later years they did joke that they taught the elephants to speak. That's not really what's going on there. But the Great Movie Ride, it was intended that your host is taking you straight into the movies, so you're really there, and so the host and everyone in the car can interact with the world around you.
Which is the part that made this ride special. I mean,
absolutely.
Really. And that was the great idea behind this attraction.
Yeah, you got to remember, up to this point, the most people had sort of journeyed into the movies was basically Fantasyland at Disneyland and Disney World had movie-based attractions, but they weren't at that level of immersion. There were certainly some rides that were better themed based on movies. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea comes to mind. But it wasn't a big thing back then. So this was kind of the first time, and obviously many other companies have done theme parks since then. This was kind of the first time many of these major movies were represented anywhere in any themed entertainment. So Wizard of Oz and all of these movies had never been seen off of a movie screen or a television screen before. So it's kind of a big deal.
But I mean, I'm pretty sure that even if this is the e-ticket attraction in the icon of the park, and it is the thing the park was built around, without the interaction with the cast members and without that story that you're immersed in, I don't think that people are as emotional about this attraction as they are. I think that is the key.
But it was also kind of the theme of the park. The park was very much about human involvement.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all about, superstar television, monster sound show,
you in the show, yeah.
Even the backlot tour, the special effects stages, all that kind of stuff was based around you being a part of it.
Yeah.
And so that's why, even though the Great Movie Ride was going to be a ride, it felt like you were more a part of it because you had this human host with you the whole time, and you're interacting with the scenes, and then the car gets stolen, and it put you in the movie, not a passive experience.
I think it's also relevant that this sort of idea of being interactive with the attraction and having an interactive host, we saw that on the backlot tour, obviously, and then they got rid of it, and that kind of spelled the downfall of the backlot tour. We had that on Listen to the Land, and then they got rid of it, and that attraction, is significantly less popular than it was. So
that ride was much better when the sunflowers hijacked the boat.
No, but I
miss that.
For for a park like studios, where you have interactions, you have live interactions with the cast members, it's definitely a different kind of experience than what you had in Fantasyland, where you just ride through, cardboard scenes of the movies. It's very different.
Yeah,
I agree. I think that's part of the challenge of these attractions, though, is because it's such a fine line between interactivity with real people and trying to maintain consistency of quality, and you lose control when you do that. So
yeah, but they've done it on Jungle Cruise for 50 years. I mean,
60,
and they always fight with the quality of.
They do. I mean, it hasn't been consistent, no, but
Right.
it's still doable.
Oh, absolutely. And I think they should do more of it. I think when we talk about Star Wars Land, we're going to see more of that. But I think for these attractions, that's the reason you're seeing some pushback on that level of interactivity. It's not from the guest viewpoint. I think it's more from the operations and management viewpoint.
Yeah. The Great Movie Ride, sponsored by Coca-Cola, opened with the Disney MGM Studios Park on May 1st, 1989. Rather than make the entire park look like a studio lot, making use of facades like in the original attraction design, it was themed in the style of the classic Hollywood era. I don't know if we have pull up some Chinese theater pictures for people. It was, again, circa 1920s to 1940s. Now that the Great Movie Ride was going to be the centerpiece of the park, it was necessary to have a grand facade that would match the adjacent Hollywood Boulevard's theme. Since the Great Movie Ride Pavilion's original design was rather simplistic, Imagineers decided to craft a new one after one of Hollywood's most well-known landmark, Grauman's Chinese Theater. This was the premier location for large-scale films of the Golden Era. It's still home to many a film premiere today, and in Disney lore, of course, it's where Mary Poppins premiered. The new attraction would focus less on the education of film production like it would have in Epcot, but rather entertain through firsthand accounts of films. And they would leave that to several other, they kind of cut that part out of the Great Movie Ride, and that became the basis for almost everything else in the park. And then the Great Movie Ride just kind of stuck to an informational tour through the history of movies, kind of. And since the building that houses the Great Movie Ride is an exact replica of the Chinese Theater, it makes sense that the forecourt would be included. The original owner of the real Chinese Theater in Hollywood, Sid Grauman, would often make large events of celebrities casting their hands and footprints into multicolored cement blocks. The celebrities would become immortalized in stone for all future visitors to enjoy. Likewise, Disney took on this tradition in their Chinese Theater, and as celebrities visited the park, their prints were taken and placed in front of the theater. The Great Movie Ride forecourt hosts 107 7 unique handprints from a variety of celebrities that were cast between 1989 and 2002. So believe it or not, even up to 2002, they were still doing it. And of course, they used to do the big thing they used to do was the Star Today program. So various celebrities would be there filming or be visiting Walt Disney World, and they would entice them to have like a little motorcade. They'd have a motorcade up Hollywood Boulevard to the theater. They'd cast their hands in the cement, and then after they left that week, Disney would put the handprints in the ground outside of the Chinese Theater. The fun thing was because the Star Today thing would happen a couple days a week, and that same celebrity would be the one every day that week or for a couple days. They would pretend to recast the handprints and footprints over and over again throughout the week.
Ho, ho, ho.
Yeah, so because they wanted to make you feel like you were there for it. And so they, while they actually did that, there was often a lot of fake cement handprints made that were either just kept backstage or smashed or
thrown out.
Yeah, kind of.
Wow.
So there you go. Yeah, so the I'm hoping the handprints stay. I know there hasn't been a whole lot. Obviously, they've said the Chinese Theater is staying, but nothing has been said for the handprints. I'm somewhat concerned about the existence of the handprints. I imagine it'll just stay. I mean, I hope they do. I hope they just leave them
Imagine
alone.
them taking them up. I mean, I don't understand why they would. They
Well,
go.
I don't understand why they're getting rid of the Great Movie Ride. But,
Well,
I mean,
because Mickey plush sells better than Sigourney Weaver plush.
They're keeping the theater.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's-
if
would
they're
it make
gonna-
they
any
are
sense?
keeping the
of
theater.
the theater.
Yeah, so it wouldn't make sense to take the handprints out.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense to do anything to the exterior if they're keeping it. I mean, except
you know
for
what
take
else
down
doesn't
the
make sense?
sign.
Putting a giant hat in front of it. But they still did that. So,
Well,
I mean,
You know what else doesn't make
is
sense?
it an unreasonable question?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No.
But if they stated the facade is staying, I really almost feel like the handprints are part of that.
Is a floor considered part of a facade? That's the real question.
I mean,
That's
if
the real
it's
question.
themed, I would assume like time and money went into those.
Yeah.
So
And they're neat. I mean, they're and a lot of them are relevant to the company. I mean, they have like all of the Star Wars actors and all of that. So it's not like it wouldn't.
And Roger Rabbit.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of them are Disney IP actors. So maybe they might remove a few people. Anyway, when walking in front of the Chinese Theater, a great collection of film scores can be heard playing in the forecourt. A lot of those you're going to be hearing in the background throughout this segment. Because this music lacks any lyrics, at least most of it, it can be confusing as to which film they came from. The Great Movie Ride has only updated this track listing for the forecourt area once, leaving although they have added Avatar. They added Avatar in 2011. Leaving the area with two slightly different soundtracks. The original soundtrack included the theme from, you're going to have to look up a lot of these kids. The theme from Exodus, the main title from Dr. Zhivago, Singing in the Rain, the Camelot Overture, the main titles from Lawrence of Arabia, My Fair Lady Overture, the Trolley Song, which most of you probably know from The Magic Kingdom, but actually originates from Meet Me in St. Louis, 1944. The South Pacific Overture, the El Cid Medley, New York, New York, How the West Was Won, Captain Blood Overture, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, the main title from The Music Man, the Overture from Oklahoma, and, of course, the main titles from Gone with the Wind. So as you can see back then, a lot of those movies ranged from, I guess, 35 only up to 67. So they were much older themes. So in 2001, they kind of made the loop a little more contemporary. They did keep Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Oklahoma, Gone with the Wind. Some of the new ones, the theme from Mission Impossible, The Sound of Music, the Superman theme, the 78, not from the current Superman series because none of that music is good. Dr. Zhivago, Singing in the Rain, Lawrence Arabia, All Stayed, My Fair Lady, Trolley Song. The 007 theme was added. I can't believe that wasn't there to begin with. Harry's Wondrous World from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. At the time, they were, of course, trying to woo J.K. Rowling to build a land in the Magic Kingdom with Harry Potter. That makes some sense. The theme from Air Force One, kids look it up. The beginning of a partnership from Shakespeare in Love, kids look it up.
Wow.
New York, New York stayed, How the Westwood Won, and Captain Blood all stayed. In 2011, they added, maybe 12 actually, they added the main score from Avatar once they struck that deal. That's the last time that loop was updated.
Does the Potter song still play in that
Potter
loop?
song's still there.
Oh, wow.
They never removed it.
Never noticed that in there.
It's in there. And it only plays in the forecourt. This loop does not leave that area.
Yeah.
And it'll now be curious if the loop stays. See what happens. The lobby of Grauman's Chinese Theater serves as the cue for the attraction, showcasing actual pieces of movie history. Over the years, the displays have included the merry-go-round horse from Mary Poppins, costumes from the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, a sword and shrunken heads from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, the chessboard from Star Wars A New Hope, the actual ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz, the dip and bullet case from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Sam's piano from Casablanca, and the Ark of the Covenant, which is there now, from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and of course, endless costume pieces over there.
I don't remember anything but the horse and the ruby slippers. I don't remember any of that. The other stuff.
They've changed pretty regularly. There's been costumes from Casablanca and Sound of Music.
I know the Narnia stuff was there back when they owned the movies. I don't remember seeing any of that other stuff though.
Yeah, it changed somewhat regularly.
There
I'm
were
not saying they didn't.
some costumes in there too. Some of Scarlett's dresses were in there.
Yeah.
Or at least one.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say, since FastPass came in, I haven't really stopped in that portion of the queue anyway.
That's what I was going to say.
It's easy to miss those items.
It is very easy.
I love that
the
part of the
Star
queue, though.
Wars-
If you are stuck in there, it's nice to look at. I love seeing those things.
Yeah, and the Ark of the Covenant's really neat. Like that's one of my favorite
Yeah.
things that's ever been in there. The chessboard was neat too, but
And that was there forever. Like stuff like that one was there for a long time.
the chessboard was somewhat recent, wasn't it? It was recent years, the chessboard. Kind of like leading up to the TCM edition, I thought.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe I just
I thought it was
remember it.
neat that they tried to update that on a pretty regular basis. Oh, we're looking at my video now. We have a great video on YouTube, by the way, if you haven't checked it out yet. We got to do the Disney Parks blog meet, which was essentially getting to walk the Great Movie Ride. And so it allowed for a lot of video that you can't get with the ride in motion. So it's a really cool video. You're watching some of that now. There's, of course, that pre-show area, if you're watching the video version of it. But then we're going to move on to the pre-show room, which looks like the interior of the Chinese Theater, minus seating. The large screen played original movie trailers from some of the films guests would encounter along the ride. The loop included The Searchers, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Alien, Walt Disney's Fantasia, Walt Disney's Mary Poppins, Footlight Parade, Singing in the Rain, and Casablanca. I miss this pre-show so much. Not that the new one's bad. We just had this one for so long, and I love these. And they're all just movie trailers, but they were really wonderful.
I liked it. I really loved it because it showed like the advanced or advancement is maybe not the right word. The progress of movie trailers from now to how they were back in the day.
Yeah.
Like movie trailers were cut together in such a
trailers before your feature presentation also make sense.
No, I'm not talking about it in terms of the ride. I'm just talking about how a trailer was made.
Oh yeah.
For movies back in like the Footlight Parade, Singing in the Rain. Like it just was such a more trying to be more like a commercial.
Yeah,
and
I don't mean that the musicals had like these full segments of songs.
Yeah, I don't mean that as a negative, but like you can argue, and then when you get to Alien, it's so much more cinematic.
Yeah.
And another thing that became like the voiceover, this is what you're going to see. This, the thing that did this, like even in Alien, it was there was like a narration. And
Walt Disney and the work of 1,000 craftsmen.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then Fantasia's and they really made Fantasia sound like the movie event of a lifetime.
Right? Yeah.
They wanted it to be,
but
they wanted it to be. They put speakers into theaters just for that. That's what Walt wanted. I mean,
it wasn't even speakers in theaters. In a lot of places, they had to erect almost a temporary theater with the speakers that would travel because a lot of theaters wouldn't pay to install Fantasound.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was just interesting to me because I guess because I'm a nerd and I'm into that sort of thing, that to see how trailers progress from like something in Footlight Parade where, like you said, you're getting a sampling of all the musical numbers, where something like Alien, it's much more cinematic, like a tease.
Yeah.
Very different from today because now we're getting like teasers of teasers and yada yada.
Now you get like a mini trailer before the trailer to tell you what the trailer is going to be.
Yeah, it was such a different art form back then, and that was really cool. Only complaint, it was a little too short. I haven't actually seen the TCM one. It was a little too short, the old one. It looped a little too much.
Yeah, because there's only 9 minutes. The TCM loop, which we have all of in its entirety on YouTube anyway, is 47 minutes long. It's basically a high-speed documentary on the history of film, but it's really wonderful. Yeah. It's a great introductory piece. If you know nothing about movies, it's really fantastic.
I think the fact that this was only 9 minutes, meaning that a lot of times you heard it a few times when you're queuing up. And I always talk about how audio is kind of the thing that brings back my park memories, and my soundtrack to Hollywood Studios is kind of this loop of trailers while I was waiting for the great movie ride. I mean, this is like when I hear that, I know exactly where I am. When I hear any one of these trailers, like it would bring me back to the great movie ride.
And because there was no Fast Pass back then, you didn't have a choice. Right. You always ended up waiting in that room at least a little bit.
Yep.
I almost think I think during the Maelstrom Back to the Future, I said I think that was one of the first attractions I quoted. Probably roughly around the same time, I think a lot of stuff from the great movie ride stuck with me. A lot of it was the pre-show.
Yeah.
Ethan, no, you don't. Ethan, no, you don't. And sitting on a backyard fence and all of that, I think are some of the earliest theme park audio that like stuck in my head.
Right.
Is just some of the stuff. Gee, Mr. Kent, that'd be swell.
These are movies I haven't even seen.
No, I had not
I know
seen
the lines.
any of those.
Yeah.
But you know these lines.
But it's funny because I went to a film class and I had to watch The Searchers as part of the homework. And I was like, hey, I know that from the great movie ride. And it's also a funny story. When I was a little young kid, I was so scared of the alien part that even the trailer, I had to like close my eyes and plug my ears because the Alien, it's such a different time period. Alien, the first movie, was all about what wasn't seen, and it's scary as all hell. Nowadays they have big giant monsters, and we're trying to be as gory as possible. Not everything. I mean, and
that and Jaws, the movies are so great because there's this suspense around what is this thing.
Because you don't see it until the end, and it's.
And so their shortcomings with what they could do technically ended up making two much better films than any of the sequels that had much better technology ever produced.
I mean, you could argue Aliens.
Aliens is arguable, but it's a very
Aliens
different
is
type of
arguable,
movie.
but it's also
Very
like,
different type of movie, though.
Very
Alien
true.
and Aliens are almost two completely different things. Two different genres, almost.
Yeah.
Alien is a horror movie. Aliens is action.
Sci-fi,
Yeah.
They're
But anyway,
both, I think top of their genre, but that's not this discussion.
No, we're getting off track.
I've staged 50 musical comedies, and I'll stage 50 more.
I just love how interesting, like, to me, that always made me, and it's probably one of the reasons I started going back and watching classic golden Hollywood movies, is because you see, these, like y'all said, these great grandiose, previews that make them look like the greatest movie to ever come out. And you want to go see it. And I do miss that part.
Yeah. See, for me, it wasn't even that, oh, that looks great. It was, I don't know what this thing is, and I've been staring at it for years, and I feel like I should figure this out. That's what drove me. I was 13 years old, and I decided I was going to try and watch every movie that's in the Great Movie Ride. And that's how it started. It wasn't, oh, that movie with FDR made out of a bunch of pieces of paper looks great. It was more, I don't know what any of these things are, and I want to kind of find out what on earth this even is. And then a lot of those movies I really fell in love with. The Searchers is wonderful. And obviously Singing in the Rain and Casablanca are untouchable classics. Obviously I'd seen Fantasia and Mary Poppins. Fun fact, I hadn't even seen the Indiana Jones movies at that point. We were not an Indiana Jones household. We obviously have seen all of Star Wars, but I didn't see any of the Indiana Jones movies until after I started watching all the movies from the Great Movie Ride.
And I mean, Scott had said something that he watched some of these in film class, and I took a lot of film classes in college and even in high school, and I think almost every single one of these, maybe not Footlight Parade, but was shown in one of my film classes.
Yeah.
A movie that we talk about.
Yep.
All right, let's go ahead and move on with our journey.
Yeah, 1 more hour. Let's go.
Stop it. Guests then are moved through the doors into the loading area, which looks just like a Hollywood set. On your left is a backdrop of the Hollywood Hills. To the front is the cinema entrance where guests will travel under the marquee and into the movies. And after being greeted by your ghost host, soon after August 13th.
Yeah.
They cease to live after August 13th.
It's so
they
sad.
Get old yeller.
Take it back and put it down.
All the carcasses from the Living with the Land and studio tour cast members are back there. It's under Star Wars land. It's in the dirt.
Tell me about the rabbits again, Mickey. Tell me about the rabbits.
Going to that potato land in the sky.
Just close your eyes, fella.
Oh, boy. After being greeted by your host... So stupid. Oh, man. After being greeted by your host who loves movies, you proceed into the first scene. I want to stop and talk about the tour guide. I have here a character profile. This is from Walt Disney Imagineering. The tour guide is a character. So there's like guidelines and stuff. I want to read you a little bit of this. As the tour guide, the biggest thing to remember is just be yourself. You want to be enthusiastic, but not over enthusiastic. At the other end of the spectrum, you don't want to deliver the spiel in a dull, monotone voice either. When referring to the audio animatronic figures, you should feel as though you're pointing out the actual celebrities to guests. In other words, try to choose inflections in your voice that make it seem as if Julie Andrews, James Cagney, and John Wayne are actually here. When the bandit or gangster come to life, remember that you are an ordinary person who has suddenly been put into an extraordinary situation. Think of it as a Twilight Zone type of episode. You should be caught off guard, but don't freak out. And then there's performance notes. Try to be conscious of your posture and mannerisms. As the tour guide, you're always on stage, even when you're not on the mic. Also maintain an upbeat and positive attitude. This is the most important when loading guests into the vehicles. Take a genuine interest in your guests. Don't just go through the motions.
Hey, nice shirt.
When you're not on mic, please limit the amount of conversation with the guests in the front row of the vehicle. Talking to them is distracting to other guests and is bad show. Additionally, it can make your other guests feel left out. In the Western or gangster scene, the most important thing to remember is not to overplay the situation. How many times is it going to say most important thing? The spiel has been carefully written and blocked, so you will give an excellent and effective performance by just being yourself without having to act.
We can't afford actors, so this is what you're going to have to do.
When playing the high priest in Anubis, your movement should be smooth, not jerky and robotic. After the thief gets toasted,
a.k.a. murdered,
like you will on August 14th, watch your timing. You should always pace yourself dramatically and dramatically fan away the smoke with your hat. Yeah, kids, it was the hat originally. Now they don't have the hat, so they use that hood. Don't rush down the stairs to your vehicle as soon as you whip off the robe. Safety in this area is our number one concern, so watch your step. And please do not add any cute jokes or puns. Stick to the spiel. The tour guide information has been written to be entertaining, but is not stand-up comedy. We want the great movie ride to be fun for guests, and adding the extra little unapproved joke can detract from the overall show experience.
I just want to quickly call baloney, because my favorite moments of this have been when
they used to improv 15 years ago.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm pretty sure I See Dead People started as an improv, and then someone who writes scripts for the rides liked it.
Well, that's a lot of the jungle updates too.
Yeah.
No, I always remember my favorite moment came, I think, from when I was there on my honeymoon, and we actually got the gangster scene, and then the gangster's there, and then the narrator comes on and is like, "You are with Sigourney Weaver aboard the," and he's like, "What's a Sigourney Weaver?" and then the alien comes out. It's like, "Is that a Sigourney Weaver?" And it's the funniest. That'll always be my number one memory of this ride, and it's because someone added that little extra magic. I mean, I get what Disney's saying, like, because we don't want to add any dirty jokes or dumb jokes, but
yeah,
I always felt they were a little too strict with that.
I actually had 2 cast members improv last week.
Well, they don't care anymore.
No, this was out of necessity, though. So apparently all 4 cars pull into the Wizard of Oz scene. So everybody's there. Your car's with your host, and then the car behind us with the other host, or tour guide, excuse me. And so the witch goes away, and the music plays, and the doors don't open, so they just have to sit there. So everyone's just staring at them because we're just sitting there, nothing's happening. So the 2 tour guides begin to have a conversation, and she goes to the other tour guide. She goes, was your trip like weird? He's like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, I had this, the car got stolen, and then I went into a bank and it exploded. You ever been in an exploding bank? It's scary. And he's like, going on like, I got shot at. And then they're like, some guy turned into a skeleton, and they just kept going until the doors opened. It was really fantastic.
And
I wish I had filmed it.
It's in character, and it's not vulgar or like.
No, and it was really funny.
It was real. That would have made me, like, I would have applauded. Like
she goes, I've never been in an exploding bank before.
I'm surprised they don't have a stall script on that ride.
It doesn't happen very often. Number one, they don't run at full capacity very often. And that ride doesn't back up. It's not a hard ride to load and unload from, even for wheelchairs. It's an even platform. It's real easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, let's move into the ride, shall we? Where are we in this? I have to find where we went in the script. Yes, so we begin the ride going into Footlight Parade, starring James Cagney, Joan Blondell, Ruby Keeler, and Dick Powell. Of course, you knew all those names if you had watched that pre-show 500 times. The scene is directly from the By a Waterfall sequence. The formation made in the Footlight Parade sequence is often referred to as a kaleidoscope cake for the symmetry and multi-tiered nature of the arrangement of the dancers. Originally, when launched, the formation not only spun around, but also featured shooting water streams similar to those in the film. In addition, 3 caped beauties stood on the right of the formation on diving boards. But due to technical problems of the spinning cake and the tram track being covered in water, the scene underwent changes in early 1990. The 3 static divers were removed. The cake stopped spinning, no longer including the water jets. The entire scene became dimly lit, and a giant scrim was placed over it. Art Deco symbols were flashed on top of the scrim until a tram car drove by, lighting the scene up, adding in some kinetic influence without the movement of the figures. Streams of bubbles now descend from the ceiling as the song By a Waterfall begins to play. This scene was completely different when the ride opened. And it's a shame because with that scrim and the wall they put there, it doesn't look like it's a very big scene. But with that wall gone, if you find pictures or video online, it's a massive scene back there.
Yeah.
It's a giant space that why they decided the scrim had to go over it, I don't really understand. It probably would have been better just have it just be there.
Yeah,
even if it wasn't moving.
Turning off the water jets is obviously something they could have done, but the scrim almost makes it look fake to an extent.
Yeah.
You know, it makes it look like
more
there's
mannequin-ish. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's just a painting behind a scrim, and they put the scrim up to kind of hide the fact that it's not a real set piece, but it is.
Yeah.
And it really stinks too, because I remember when it spun. I remember the water and everything, and it was so incredible. And in the late 80s, early 90s, and everything, I had never seen or heard of Footlight Parade besides the Great Movie Ride, but to see the spinning and the water, it was really cool, and I actually kind of wanted to see it, but I haven't still.
Footlight Parade is the least interesting of every movie in the Great Movie Ride.
But
it's the only one I sat through, and I was like, all right.
It must have taken, just to think about how much effort and time it probably took to coordinate all of those people with the synchronized swimming and diving. I mean,
absolutely.
It's crazy.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Was there ever not, I don't want to say projections because it wasn't that technology, but did they ever do things of people across the scrim, or is that my memory playing tricks
It's
with me?
still there now.
It is. So they do that. It looks weird.
It's like a spinning projection of the formations they make in the water in the movie.
Yeah, it's weird. Because
I don't know.
It makes the scene look less impressive than it is, I guess, is what everyone's saying.
I would replace this scene with the Mickey ride.
That would
fit it.
Are we going to go through every scene and be like, I would do this with a Mickey ride? That's a grading. We're grading the...
Yes.
How do they have problems making things spin all the time?
Meanwhile, across the path, it's raining.
He's not done yet. Yeah.
It's raining in the next scene. They couldn't figure out fountains?
No, they can't. Somehow they have a problem aiming the fountains.
Is that what it was?
I don't know.
Apparently it was wetting the ride track.
I mean,
there's our show logo.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was wasn't it splashing upwards to symbolize them going in and then hitting the water out?
Maybe.
I remember reading that.
Even
somewhere.
the clearest video of that scene that exists is not great. So
no, but I did Google a picture, and it looks so much better than what is
it
there.
does. They should have, even if it was immobile and without water, they should have never put the scrim. The scrim should have never went up.
No, agreed.
They could have just put strobe lights on it, like they did with the Yeti.
I would pay anything to see the Yeti in Footlight Parade now. I want this to happen. Oh, next year's parade.
You mean this year's parade?
You mean this year's parade? Yeah.
I'm going to talk about it. Next up, we have the Singing in the Rain scene. Showing Don Lockwood, as played by Gene Kelly, performing the title song of the film. The dance routine includes Don twirling an umbrella and splashing through puddles and getting soaked on a city street. In the ride scene, rain falls in front of the singing figure as he hangs from a street lamp.
Which is from the movie. It's just a much shorter portion.
It happens in the movie, yeah.
Yeah.
And it might be the most iconic moment, him on the lamppost, which
yeah, possibly.
Yeah, which then also had a photo op on Streets of America where you could hang onto an umbrella and it would rain over you, which was really neat and now no longer exists like everything else at Hollywood Studios. Anyway, this is a very depressing segment.
Yeah,
It really is.
Talking about everything that's been bulldozed at Hollywood Studios.
It's like it's eulogy.
Oh, my poor part. The Mary Poppins scene is from the final scene of the film where Mary Poppins and her companion Bert sing Chim Chim Cheree. The background wall is filled with silhouettes of cheerful chimney sweeps dancing, or in this case, just kind of leaning from left to right. Mary is holding... maybe we can go back to that video.
I vote we go back to Scott acting it out.
Well, that's what they were doing.
Can we show Scott acting it out first? Scott's dramatic reenactment of the chimney sweeps. There it is. No, but you got it's hands on hips like this.
Oh, they're not going to see my.
Yeah. Now it just looks like you're doing I'm a Little Teapot.
Well, I thought didn't some of them I thought some of
them had their arms up. No?
Yeah, I agree with. I thought someone was like.
Is it one of them holding the chimney sweep?
We need to be playing I'm Blue while they do this, Nick.
I have those. Anyway. They have those weird brushes, you know.
The brushes. They have those brushes.
You're waking my dog.
Oh, the sweeps have brushes.
They do for brushing the chimney.
Why are you sticking its tongue out at me?
That's the way he is. He can't put it in his mouth.
There we go. Now we're seeing the Gene Kelly
singing in the rain.
That's some great footage. I wonder who shot this fantastic footage.
Oh, wait. It was me, Tom Corliss. I'm the best.
All these still shots of these amazing animatronic scenes.
See, it's not.
You're right.
Yeah.
They have the brushes.
Yeah. Exotic butter. Yeah. Have some butter, Tom.
Oh boy! As Scott floats away with his carpet bag that's clearly attached to a wall.
Yeah, I didn't notice it when I was a kid.
You're both kind of right. There was one arm up, and there's
He's right. He is absolutely right. Anyway, where are we here? Chim Chim Cheree. Yeah, that happens.
Chim Chim Cheree next.
That's a scene. And it's a shame. This is the only ride to ever have a Mary Poppins scene. And now we're not going to have a ride with the Mary Poppins, which it's always kind of been a shame that Mary Poppins never got a ride.
You want to know what's more of a shame? That they're remaking Mary Poppins.
Well, yeah, but maybe that means we get a ride.
I read an article on some website that maybe it's coming to UK Pavilion.
It could be.
I think that was...
it's out there.
The site started with the W and with the .com.
So that narrows it down.
Unfirmed. There we go. See, one of them has both arms up.
What?
Yeah, I'm looking at
both arms up. Can we throw the video back up?
See right there.
We're not seeing this.
Wait, yeah, we can't see the video.
The video. Put the video up. See right there.
He's lifting weights.
He's
his dumbbells fell off.
He's getting swole. He's not skipping arm day. He's got swag, as the kids say.
As there's Monstropolis in the background.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can anyone tell me what this movie is? Oh. That's from the
Mary
old
Poppins
school.
still. Yeah, it's still Mary Poppins.
My thing, I used to yell the wrong movie out.
Oh, Tom, you're so funny.
I know, right? I used to yell Alien or...
Just like when you go, no, when you watch Fantasmic.
Oh, anyway. The next scene, the gangster / public enemy scene, doesn't retell the story of the film directly, but it is inspired by the film. The area is called the Underworld, representing the urban streets of the early 20th century, brimming with illegal activities.
Right in a Disney park.
Well, OBT's not far away. It kind of looks like
Dead end. I don't know why we're saying that.
I was going to say Vista Way.
It's also wearing a Viewmaster for some reason.
Yeah, it is. That's weird.
Tom Powers, is played by James Cagney, is standing on a stoop threatening a man behind a door, which is a good announcement for me and everyone else on Twitter. As guests turn the corner, They encounter a rundown hotel and stop in the middle of the street as they reach a red light. Muggsy and his accomplices, fresh from a bank robbery, have a gun battle in the middle of the street as a car rolls out from a nearby parking garage. After hijacking the tram and scaring off the guy, the guests are now led around by the crook after he shoots the red light out. No more red light.
Forever.
This doesn't happen to everybody who rides the ride. And I think everybody obviously knows this, but
that's a very different concept art than what we got.
Yeah, right. There's a guy clearly getting shot and like
Yeah,
dying.
there's a guy-
Yeah.
That took a very dramatic
Also, people are in the boats from Jurassic Park River Adventure for some reason.
that part.
CP25, can you hear me?
We've been knocked off course by that gangster.
A gangster. He bumped the boat.
The animatronics in the scene are better dinosaurs than the ones on Jurassic Park. So
Yeah, that actually has a car that moves.
Yeah.
Oh, you spend all day insulting Universal, and now we make fun of the ride.
You're about movie ride. Yeah, that's fine.
No.
The other way around's fine. So what happens, again, this is the Universal Energy ride system, but this does some things that that system did not do. And what's really interesting here is, so you leave in this, if they're running at full capacity, you leave in this big group of cars, of 4 cars. But what'll happen, those first 2 cars will go away faster and go off to the western scene, and the back 2 cars will stop here and have this scene. So when those first 2 cars go through here, nothing happens. You kind of hear the guys behind the guys in the car are out and kind of just whispering to each other as if something's about to go down, but nothing does, and you go off to the western scene. But then if you're in those back 2 cars, you get this entire scene, which I think is pretty ingenious. They had this idea of 2 completely different ride experiences, which sure, Horizons had choose your own ending, but I think this was slightly more ambitious. And everyone agreed. Great. It's always fun to do
Sorry,
these
I got
rides.
distracted by the video.
Yeah, it is a great video.
Oh, let's just shut up and play the video.
There's a newspaper on the ground, and there's a car.
Man, this is a great video.
Thank you.
So do we know this is this concept?
Is this a great video? It sure is.
What was the concept thought out far enough for the Epcot attraction? Is this what was in that, or was that concept not fleshed out
I
this
think
much?
it took a different direction, but I think it was this ride all along. I think there was more of a behind the scenes aspect to it, but I think it still had a lot of this. There's not a whole lot. Most of the concept art and even the script I have here are from after it had been a park. Yeah, because this Great Moments at the Movie script is from October 23rd of 86. At this point, it's at the studio. But I don't think it changed, and it may have not been that far in development where there was a ton of scenes mapped out and stuff. But although it would have been kind of strange to have the moving theater cars, one of those on each side of Future World might have been a little weird. I don't know.
How many Omni movers did they have at the time?
That's true. They were at least a little different, and in similar fashion, these were just different looking versions of the same vehicle, so it probably would have been fine. Probably would have worked for Epcot, right? Something to look for in this scene, if you've never seen it before, there's a pretty neat hidden Mickey. Jason, if you pull up the or Michael, whoever's doing it, if you go back in the gangster scene a bit to the billboard wall, you can see this. There's a really neat hidden Mickey. If you look at the lower left corner of the billboard wall, on the left, you'll see Mickey's foot from a classic Mickey billboard, as if a Mickey billboard has been covered over by all of these posters and stuff. It's under the Public Enemy poster that's on the wall there. It's pretty neat.
We can't see it.
Well, he's got it. There we go.
It's right there. Yep.
Oh,
There you see in the lower left
Wow.
corner, there's Mickey's foot and his tail.
Yeah.
They knew all along. Literally, they're just gonna pull the Public Enemy poster off the wall, and
Now just like Alien, he's gonna burst out of it.
be just like Frozen. They're just gonna put Mickey animatronic.
Yeah, he's just gonna put Mickey, and he's gonna be asking for $1 outside the door. That's all I remember that dialogue is James Cagney asked, "You gonna tell him you're gonna come back with $1?"
At one point, Cagney shoves an entire grapefruit in. Never mind. We then entered the Old West scene. This is the only area where a specific film is not mentioned by name, but rather two notable actors are highlighted, John Wayne and Clint Eastwood. When the tram enters this scene, guests see Clint Eastwood standing in front of a saloon smoking. The scene is likely pulled from one of the films from the Dollars trilogy. In the three films, Eastwood plays a character known as the Man with No Name. Three films, A Fistful of Dollars, A Few More Dollars, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, all feature Eastwood as a mysterious stranger that plays the part of a gunslinger, a man who would enter a town and challenge locals in a fight for cash rewards. On the left side of this scene, John Wayne sitting on his horse while looking into the distance. This scene is taken from his role as Ethan Edwards in the 1956 epic Western, The Searchers. The cinematography of the film highlights the large expanse of landscape, which is also captured in the background art of the ride. There you go. You see that big mural behind him. Hand painted, by the way, as most of the backdrops in the Great Movie Ride were. And as the cars progress, guests find themselves in the middle of a shootout as locals attempt to shoot down a bandit bank robber. Of course, if you get the bank robber scene, if you're in those front two cars, your vehicle is hijacked, but they also throw dynamite into the bank, and the bank explodes. Pretty neat.
What's the one they would normally do? Was it this one? On slow
when
days?
There were budget cuts after 9/11, the bank robber scene, which is the Western, went away for quite a while as part of the budget cuts.
This one went away.
Yeah, so there were
Not
several
the-
years where they did not do this scene, and they ran the movie ride at half capacity, basically, because attendance was down, and they were trying to save money by not.
I couldn't remember which scene was. I guess this one was more expensive.
Yeah, because of the fire.
fire
The other
effects,
scene
yeah.
literally didn't cost them anything.
Yeah, I can specifically remember not seeing this scene for a number of years.
Yeah.
And at first I didn't really realize that it was cut, so I kept riding, hoping to get it. And I'm like, man, what are the chances that I get the other scene so many times in a row? Then
We
I
only
kinda
knew
figured
because we
something.
asked. I remember, like in 2002, we asked for Cowboy because we hadn't had it in a while. And they
Right.
said we don't do that anymore. And it was at least a good 5 or 6 years.
Stop
I think, before
bothering
it
us,
came back. Then I went and bought pins under a giant hat.
You forgot
Was there-
John. Go ahead. Sorry.
Was there a particular reason why they didn't mention any of the movie names here, or was it just because those characters are more iconic than the genres?
I think it's the
I
character
think
and the
it's-
genre
I think there
more
were
than any.
so many westerns.
Yeah,
How do
It
you
would have
pick?
been hard to pick one, but
Yeah.
you hear Western, you think
you
John
have
Wayne
the
and Clint Eastwood.
you have the classic and the modern right there.
Yeah, you don't really think of one specific movie. You think of them.
And you forgot John Wayne warning people about going up farther ahead.
It's a mighty tough territory you're heading into there, Pilgrim.
You might watch out. Mickey Mouse is coming.
If I were you.
I'd turn around. Mickey Mouse is coming. It's gonna take our ride.
The
partner.
rare kind of courage, the kind of courage that goes on and on. Never
Until Mickey Mouse comes in.
mind.
And then, well, no one's going to mess
Until
with him.
Bob Chapek comes to town.
Oh,
The meanest hombre this side of the.
I'd be getting a new board member, partner.
So then you have the alien scene.
Then we're at Spaceship Distromos because Eisner thought Magic Kingdom
Can
was
we
boring.
let's talk about something for a second? My favorite thing is the smoke that comes out of the horse stable. So yeah, the bank explodes, but
the
then there's the
horse-
smoke coming
The
through.
Horse lets one.
No, but there's the smoke that goes through the panels, the wood panels of the barn you go through, and I think that's just the coolest thing. That and the bullet that hits the sign across the path,
sign,
and the
yeah.
sign swings.
Yeah. Yep.
The great movie ride sets have such an insane amount of detail.
And that
And-
piano player, I don't remember.
The piano player was for the walkthrough event.
Okay.
There's just such an insane amount of detail that I don't know. Just at that time, we were starting at that second golden age of Imagineering, late '80s, early '90s, and it's just so present in this ride and the level of detail. I have character profiles for the bandit and the And the gangster, do we want to hear these or should I skip them?
Oh, yes, please.
Oh, yeah? Okay. For the gangster, Muggsy is a classic Prohibition-era crook a la John Dillinger. According to police records, he's 29 years old. His rap sheet goes back to the days when he was a kid, scamming tourists and picking pockets. Muggsy has worked his way up to the local crime scene, one bullet at a time. He's cocky and arrogant and has always felt he was better than the next guy.
So he's a murderer.
I think I'm accidentally reading the Tom Corliss character profile.
I was going to say that, Tom. You'd make an excellent gangster.
Sounds oddly.
Aren't you 29?
Almost. Confirmed. Muggsy likes to exchange lead with the local authorities or even better with
I think he likes to exchange lead.
Sorry.
You don't shoot.
They're spelled the same way.
You don't shoot lead out of guns.
Muggsy I didn't pre-read this. Muggsy likes to exchange lead, with the local authorities or even better with rival crooks trying to move in on his turf. Of course, sometimes he likes to move in on their turf, which has resulted in some ill feelings throughout the neighborhood.
Honestly, there's a lot of hurt feelings going around. I think it would benefit from them sitting down and talking about their feelings.
Being a leader of the whole South Side means making sure his interests always come first. Although he's loyal to his boys, this means everybody is expendable, particularly if it means his hide versus theirs.
Yeah, I was like, doesn't he run away on two people?
Muggsy has made quite a name for himself, running booze to supply the local speakeasies. This is alluded to in the sets. If you look, there's a closed bar that has all sorts of stuff about Prohibition posted outside of it. So sets the stage for all of this. He normally wouldn't hurt innocent bystanders unless he feels threatened by them. Muggsy is almost always cool and in control.
So the
this
whole
is
thing
such a bull. Yeah, go ahead, Ron. You'll probably say
he's
the
a
same
good guy, except when it's not convenient for him.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's good, but
He'll
not.
never do this unless he wants to do it. Such contradictory baloney.
Oh, I read
never
ahead.
hurt them.
I read
unless he
ahead.
wants
Keep
to.
reading because this is in stark contradiction with most of the gangsters that
Here
I've
are the
ever
performance
seen.
notes. You ready for these performance notes? Do not try to talk with a strong gangster accent. It sounds
That's
bad.
what we do.
It sounds bad. Is very cliche. In general, is bad show. Apparently, they stopped using these notes a long time ago.
Yeah.
I
The
will
spiel-
say though. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
And then I will say we did on my very last time. We did have a gangster, and he did the cliched accent, but he did it so well, and he did the character so well that it still worked, and I actually enjoyed it because usually I hate it, but in that one instance, it actually did work.
The spiel is written with certain phrases and pronunciations built into it, which are conducive to your character. Deliver the spiel as written with the accent, and the accent will be included almost automatically.
That's
This
more
is-
Disney magic.
This
It
is
will be
so
included automatically.
For the most part, Muggsy isn't concerned with the guests. They just happen to be unfortunate passengers in the wrong place at the wrong time. He knows they are no threat, so Muggsy decides to make the best of the situation, let them know he's the boss, and then decide to do what to do with them later. In the gangster scene, Muggsy should be brash and aggressive. After boarding the vehicle, Muggsy is too busy trying to escape to fully grasp the situation. In the Western scene, Muggsy realizes he's on some kind of strange vehicle that has been taken to a completely foreign environment. He is confused but slightly amused. When the sheriff starts shooting, he thinks the law is after him and he doesn't want to take a bum rap. In Alien Raiders, Muggsy is very confused. Being the tough guy he is, however, he never really lets it show. Although the alien surprises him, once the attack is over, Muggsy regains his composure.
Yeah, okay.
In Anubis, Muggsy sees a giant ruby and forgets he isn't back on the docks. It doesn't matter. All he thinks about is stealing the gem. Muggsy is actually quite nonchalant about making the heist of his career. And he gets burnt.
This is so baloney.
All right, let's talk about the bandit.
Uh-oh.
Wait,
I wanted to focus on the bum
All
rap
right,
part
let's
because
talk about it.
He shot at people. How is this a bum rap?
He didn't shoot at people. He shot at other gangsters.
That's still shooting at people.
Yeah,
Are you
that's
He doesn't
still
shoot
not
at
people?
innocent people, though.
He clearly fired lead at other people.
He shot a traffic light.
That was an innocent traffic light.
It was an innocent traffic.
It had one day to retirement.
Doing its job.
Exactly. No, this is baloney. Like, of all things, Alien is like he's nonplussed about the Alien. If I ever saw one of those things, I'd need a new change of drawers because those things are freaky as heck.
That's because you're not a roughened pickpocket on the
Yeah, I
streets.
haven't been prohibitioning since I was a young lad.
But he already thinks he's in
You've been running that
Jersey,
butter.
so I wouldn't be.
I've been running that butter.
Ron, go
Okay,
ahead.
you can
No,
pan off.
I was going to ask: was the Jersey line in the script, or was that just something improv that picked up over the years?
I think Jersey's in the script.
Everyone hates
It
Jersey.
isn't anymore. Now the new line is, or it was for a while, this must be the west side of town. But it was, what is this Jersey for a long time.
My favorite line of the show.
What is this Jersey? Yeah, it's a good one. Oh, Bandit. We're going to talk about the Bandit. I have the Bandit.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Kate Durango and Kid Carson are scrappy, small-time bank robbers in the Old West. Although their ages are unknown, local newspapers put them between 20 and 30. Their older brother and father were killed in a shootout with Laramie City Sheriff.
Holy crap.
Since then, they, along with their partner, Snake, have lived by the law of the gun. Their gun. Since Snake is a little slow when it comes to learning, Kate and Kid are leaders. They enjoy a good shootout every now and then, certainly aren't worried about blowing a bank sky high.
The blood of their enemies gets them going.
Although resourceful,
The rivers will run red with the innocents.
both Kate and Kid are completely self-educated, learning all they know from living the life of a renegade. They are greedy and brash, always looking for the next bank or stagecoach to rob. Not easily intimidated, both are usually in complete control. However, when in unfamiliar surroundings, they become quite edgy and tense.
So originally,
go ahead.
So originally, it looks from these notes that would only be allowed to play in the Western scene and not Muggsy, because Muggsy always said he.
Wait, I didn't catch half of that.
No, it looks like that the Western script was written to be either a man or a woman.
Yeah.
While
And Muggsy was
gangster
not.
Script, yeah.
Muggsy was never a woman until later. I think that was just a thing they did at some point.
Once they shut off the scene.
Yeah.
Once they shut off the.
Well, when did they finally get female Jungle Cruise skippers? Was that in the 80s?
Well, listen, this has nothing to do with that. It's clearly Kate Durango.
Well, yeah, but it seems at this point in time, only the bandit could be a woman. The gangster was never a woman.
I don't know.
It is worth mentioning. Do not try to talk with a strong Western accent. It sounds bad, is very cliche, and in general, bad show. It's almost word for word the same as the other one. It's almost the same. Don't be concerned with the guests. Bandit is brash and aggressive in the Western scene, no regard for the bank or the sheriff. Then they realize they're in a funny kind of stagecoach, but is too busy trying to escape. Bandit realizes he or she is in some strange vehicle in the alien raider scene.
Anubis?
But stays tough. In Anubis.
They spelled Anubis wrong.
Well, this is before the internet, so, you know, I'm going to cut them some slack.
For spell check.
Anubis.
All the bandit thinks about is stealing the gem. Same kind of notes that we have for the other one.
Well,
but yeah.
To the tomb of Anubis.
And Tom, please do not walk with a swagger.
Don't walk like Tom coming out of the Parks and Resorts presentation at D23. Don't do that. Okay, let's move into the alien scene. Brings us directly into the spaceship Nostromo. Something has gone wrong. One by one, the crew has vanished.
Son said Magic Kingdom was boring.
And somewhere, lurking in the ship, a terrifying creature awaits to claim its next victim. I don't know if that's in the script, by the way. So you have the tram passes Ripley, breathing heavily while hiding in a corridor.
And apparently melting.
Back in the day, the ominous voice would come over to narrate as the tram slowly passes by. You got to remember back then, when your guide left, when the vehicle was hijacked, you then had this just announcer guy who kind of would take over until the Anubis scene, which went away during the TCM overhaul. As the tram slowly crawls under an air duct, the monstrous alien ascends from the ceiling in a cloud of steam to the chagrin of children everywhere. For the second car, a second alien pops out of the right wall to continue the surprise.
This was pretty scary stuff, actually. These
As
guys,
a kid, yeah. And
these were no joke.
Literally, since this was announced to be closing, so many of the comments have been, I was scared of the alien scene as a kid.
Because it's really well done. It's just the sirens and the smoke and the darkness, all, and Ripley looks
the ominous voice, and Ripley just sweating up against that wall, freaking out.
Yeah, it was really well done.
Yeah. There's some fun hidden things. You're actually seeing them in the video here in this scene. If you never looked at it.
What a great video!
Hey,
that's a great video, man.
Hey, calm down. The spacesuits you saw at the beginning of the scene earlier in the video. They don't have knobs on them. Those things on the sides of like the boxes on the chest are not knobs. They're actually bottle caps. They were Coca-Cola bottle caps back when the attraction was sponsored by Coca-Cola, but they were made generic bottle caps later on. There it is.
Wow.
So rather than put actual knobs on after Coca-Cola leaves, they found generic non-labeled bottle caps and put them on instead. Amazing attention to detail. The other fun thing is the screens on the left side towards the floor have a bunch of hidden references. There's that one, which is fun to read. You should read that one. We also have, there's one with just binary code, which is actually the programming for the Wicked Witch animatronic. So the binary code on that placard is very simply the programming for the witch in binary code. And then also that list you just saw there was a bunch of the Imagineers who worked on the project. A bunch of them are still around, including Mr. Weiss, who's now in charge of, Bob Weiss now in charge of Imagineering. Eric Jacobson, of course, was the supervisor in the attraction, head of the attraction. Kathy Rogers on there, too. The rest of those names I do not recognize. I don't think. Or Tim Kirk is of some fame. He did some interesting stuff. Tim Kirk actually drew the concept art for the, in the late 70s, early 80s, there was going to be a fake Mickey Mouse like backstage tour attraction that he did art for. And it was going to be like a fake backlot tour of the Walt Disney Studios. So you get in these fake like cartoony limos. Spoiler alert, became a different ride later. And you'd go through the Walt Disney Studios and there'd be like a makeup department and it'd be like the villains getting makeup put on. And, Mickey would be like tuning an orchestra to create the musical track for a cartoon and stuff like that. So precursor to the Great Movie Ride, there was kind of a fake, almost like a fake version of the Great Movie Ride where they took you on a behind the scenes tour of how a Disney cartoon was made. But acting as if the cartoon characters were real. Kind of like Roger Rabbit before Roger Rabbit existed, in fact. But anyway, Tim Kirk made me go off on that tangent. Surprisingly, that ride never happened for the studios, though. It probably would have been really cool. What else we got? No, that's all the hidden stuff in the alien scene. Yeah, so you can check all that out in the video. Really neat. I know next time you ride, if you're riding in the next 2 weeks, make sure you sit on the left side and look down. The Raiders of the Lost Ark scene has 3 parts. The first features Indiana Jones lifting the Ark out of the Well of Souls along with Sala. The next scene brings us into a large chamber decorated with hieroglyphics with a large statue of the Egyptian god Anubis. Excuse me.
Anubis.
Fun fact, they didn't know that was Anubis. A lot of internal documents refer to that as Ra. So
which has a bird head. So
yeah, so before the internet, yeah.
But it's also much easier to spell than Anubis.
It is.
Also
it's literally R-A. Now there's a meal named after it at Jock Lindsay's, the snack of Ra. But yeah, there's Anubis encrusted with a large jewel. The tram hijacker leaves the car in order to steal it, only to be entrapped by the jewel's curse. Halt, unbeliever.
He's murdered.
The gods, and you shall all pay with your lives. And of course, this is where the original tour guide emerges from the worshiper's disguise and begins the tour again after having to ask for applause.
Please.
Ta-da! And then like 5 people clap.
I'm not dead. Don't you care?
Well, it's only till August 14th. The last, they then take back over. The last scene brings us deeper into the tomb where they talk about the horror genre briefly.
Which is the lamest part because they don't even show any horror movies or any characters from horror movies, which I get why.
They scared the kids enough with Alien, and then all
I mean,
these
if you're
snakes
gonna
on
have
it.
Alien, which is terrifying, you could at least have like an animatronic of like Freddy or Jason and he goes, "Hey, howdy, hey."
Were those a thing yet? What year did those movies come out?
Those came out in the early 80s.
Crap, maybe
So
not actually.
They were.
Yeah,
but
maybe not.
But when the ride was in development, they probably only just debuted.
No, they would have been.
Yeah, I
famous
think
well
you're
by
right.
that point.
Yeah. Really? Think so, Ron? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a big horror guy.
By the time this came out, I was like watching like I think like Nightmare on Elm Street 4 when like and those like they were in their 4th and 5th movies at that point of those series. But but isn't every major horror movie kind of that's famous owned by Universal anyway?
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Not those two. I thought that the traditional werewolf mummy.
I think that's why they got Alien. I think Alien kind of filled the need of both sci-fi and horror, and it was a pretty decent transition, I think, into Raiders, honestly.
Oh yeah, it wasn't bad.
Yeah. Hidden in this scene are hieroglyphics featuring. There's one with Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, and another with C-3PO and R2-D2. They're both kind of cool. There's Mickey and Donald. The Tarzan scene features the main characters from the film. Jane, dressed like a native, sits upon Tantor the elephant, while Cheetah the chimpanzee screeches. Tarzan swings along a vine on the left while making his unforgettable yodel-like scream.
And I'll never forget, we always talk about this, how they had to rig up this amazing system to make the thing turn around instead of just building another going in the opposite way.
Yeah, so he goes around and then the thing turns and then he goes back. Yeah.
Could have just made another, man. And had
Ungala Cheetah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, this is, if I was going to upgrade the Great Movie Ride rather than bulldoze it like a psychopath, the Tarzan scene is probably one of the expendable ones, I think.
So go ahead,
And
Jason.
make the cake spin again. That's the other thing.
So the Mickey ride can go in this room?
Yeah, so it goes from
this
Footlight
and
Parade
Footlight
to
Parade,
this.
I am willing to give up.
All right.
I will
So Mickey Mouse has to go
So the
through
interesting
Alien.
we will sublet the Great Movie Ride.
You're on the spaceship Nostromo.
Yeah, something's gone wrong, all right.
I'd rather have Footlight Parade than the tornado.
Somewhere on the ship, a terrifying Parks and Resorts chairman waits to claim his next victim.
Yeah. IPs.
He has the head of like the T-Rex on a stick.
He has like a little Bob Chayka come out of his mouth. Like, all right, I thought that'd be funnier. Go on, keep moving.
He's a robot, not an alien. Don't be ridiculous.
Well, he's taking over the alien scene. Okay.
In the Casablanca scene, Rick Blaine, Humphrey Bogart, is talking to Elsa, not the Elsa you're all thinking of, portrayed by Ingrid Bergman. In one of the most quoted scenes in movie history, to quote the ride back in the day, they used to say, best last line of a movie ever. Victor sits in the plane while Rick fondly remembers his time with Elsa and wishes her the best in the future. The plane engine roars as a foggy airstrip glows in the night. And, of course, he says, here's looking at you, kid.
Which is not the last line.
Maybe not
Yeah,
today.
it's
maybe
not.
tomorrow.
But we'll excuse them in 1989.
They didn't have a VHS back then either?
Fun fact,
No.
the back of this plane is the one you see on the Jungle Cruise of the Magic Kingdom. So because they couldn't fit the whole plane, they bought this plane and they sawed the back half off because it wouldn't fit. And they were like, well, what do we do with this back half? And someone had the bright idea of putting it as a downed airplane on the Jungle Cruise. So now the question is, will the front of the plane join the back of the plane on the Jungle Cruise?
No.
Probably.
No. Answer no. Move on.
No, it will fly into Tom's living room, where Tom will then wear a trench coat and a hat and quote Casablanca endlessly.
Here's looking at you, great movie ride. You might get removed. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow.
But sooner for the rest of your life.
August 17th, 13th, whatever. It don't matter.
August 14th is my birthday, so if they just want to move everything.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday! We're putting the whole ride in your apartment. Enjoy.
Okay.
I could poop in the Tarzan scene. I could poop in a stump.
What are you talking about? Where did that come from? Like, I know that was a reference.
Bathroom.
I know
the
that was a
Tarzan scene will go in the bathroom.
I mean, I know the second part was a reference to me, but then you just came out of nowhere with the pooping.
Well, I was thinking about where I was going to put. Where am I going to put all these things?
Yeah, but you didn't just start with the Tarzan scene will be my bathroom. You just said, I'm going to poop in Tarzan.
Put your bathroom in one of the Munchkin.
That's probably what Bob Chapek's going to do on August 14th. This is what I think of your ride. Stop it. We don't need the sound effects.
Wait, never mind.
Moving on to the Fantasia scene. The Fantasia sequence takes place in the middle of a swirl of wind as Sorcerer Mickey raises the waters for the enchanted brooms to continue working. And guests feel the magical gusts of wind as Mickey stands high atop a monolith.
Mickey makes a magical placeholder scene when MGM got cold feet.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about it. Fun fact, that scene was the inspiration for every Universal ride. Moving on. The Wizard of Oz scene in the Great Movie Ride begins in Munchkin Village, where Dorothy's home has landed atop the Wicked Witch of the West. A lot of murder in this ride.
There's a lot of death. This is probably the highest body count.
In 22 minutes, you kill like a dozen people.
This has got to be the highest body count of a Disney ride.
At least they don't kill the guests in this one.
At least.
Not on purpose,
two.
anyway.
I mean, the hijacker dies. The other witch dies, and I'm pretty sure they kill. I mean, they blow up an entire bank. There's got to be some.
Yeah, they blow up the bank. That's true.
It's not even including the montage at the end.
This has got to be when they punch a horse. Yeah.
Is there a prop office?
And the gangster.
I'm like, so what? Whatever. Mickey Mouse ride's gonna kill like 30 people.
And the hijacker also gets it.
Yeah, I mentioned him.
I think we said that.
Yep.
Thank you, Michael. Anyway. Back to the Munchkin Village.
This is really tragic when they take this out, because this
scene is the reason why the Great Movie Ride should exist.
This is expansive.
Yeah, and I mean it's literally here. You have what has to be the most famous film of all time, the most watched film perhaps of all time, and it never had a theme park, a full real life representation, and here it is. And it's wonderful that Disney got to do it because the level of detail is there, and you have the whole Munchkin Village, and then even I love this little scene, them looking at the Emerald City, so wonderful. It's probably the biggest loss of the whole ride.
I think by far this is going to be the biggest gut punch.
Yeah,
this is going to be the biggest gut punch of removing it completely, because like everyone's saying, this was not a simple room with, what am I like Gene Kelly singing in the Rain and Footlight Parade.
Those are little almost vignettes.
Like that'll be sad, but this is gonna be.
And Western and Gangster are huge scenes, but they're not a specific movie. I mean, this scene is based on possibly the most beloved movie of all time.
Plus, those are like two animatronic / figures. This is like bursting, and the witch especially. Like, where's this gonna go? Unless they make it goofy in the new ride.
It's gonna end up in Tom's apartment.
Yeah, okay.
Tom, how many Munchkins are you gonna get?
Like they sing, "We welcome you to Munchkin Land."
When I go to poop, it's gonna be in Munchkin
Land. Anyway,
she was the first A1000.
We're getting there.
I don't know what order we're going in anymore.
Hold on. So as the tram moves along the yellow brick road, the Munchkins begin singing "Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead." Suddenly, the dead witch's sister emerges from a cloud of smoke, threatening to seek revenge on the passengers of the tram for killing her sister. The
Her
Munchkins
name is
hide in
Elphaba.
fear until the witch disappears. The Wicked Witch was the very first A100 audio animatronic figure ever produced. These figures offered more fluid movement and no body jolting when sudden movements were made by the figure. This was a huge jump in audio animatronics. The way in 1967, people asked if the auctioneer was a real person on Pirates of the Caribbean. For years and years and years, people would ask if the witch was a real actress in the Great Movie Ride.
And then they would turn around and ask the tour guide if they were a robot. Oh, it's actually an animatronic. Oh, are you an animatronic?
Probably
Yes,
one of the
ma'am,
most
I am.
iconic audio animatronic figures of all time, up there with the auctioneer, I think.
I think so. It's pretty astounding.
Yeah.
And Bonnie Appetit.
Would you stop? Why are you gonna ruin everything?
Me.
No, it's Mr. Eggs.
Food wrapper. Food wrapper was literally a bag with a finger that went like this. Just
Oh, it's Mr. Eggs with the bow tie. Is that his name? I don't even remember.
He was the first A1 figure.
You keep talking like that, we're gonna get the hook.
Yeah, he's right. They did get the hook.
Yeah, they did. Right in the story.
They're now a Q. At least the Great Movie Ride isn't being replaced with a Q. Thankful for that.
Well, part of it, I'm sure. It depends on how long the ride is.
I think they're keeping the Q. I think that's the Q. Anyway. The tour guide then asks for directions, in which the Munchkins reply with another song, "Follow the Yellow Brick Road."
What are you, an idiot? There's only one way out of here.
The tram continues along the Yellow Brick Road, where Dorothy, Toto, Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Lion are standing. In the distance, the Emerald City glistens in the distance, with the wizard himself awaiting.
Does Ashley no longer want to make the movie ride great again?
No, I'm sorry. I had to go let my dog out, and he jumped up with mud on my
Oh.
shirt. So I had to change.
Oh no!
Yeah,
At least you didn't put on a Mickey Mouse shirt. That's good.
That would have been awesome. I was like, we've been here for so long.
I
You
know,
actually changed already.
I did. I had a costume change.
We've been here for 24 hours.
I know how dogs are. Look at mine. This is just too much to control right now.
Anyway.
Aww.
I will gladly sell you one of mine.
No,
Rip your house apart.
Can we
dog today?
Can we go back to the Great Movie Ride?
No, we're looking at my pug.
Anyway.
The pub will still be there in a few weeks.
So for the finale of the Great Movie Ride, both tracks meet in a large dark theater, much like Nick with most people.
Oh my gosh!
Isn't even news tonight.
All my shows are kind of becoming the same.
Yeah,
They're morphing together.
I can't contain myself anymore. Oh, the numbers keep going up. What do you want me to do? Right? This is what people want, Nick. I'm sorry.
Give them what they want.
Ride vehicles line up next to one another, and a fast-paced movie montage begins to play. The films vary in style and era, are linked together by various soundtracks and sound cues. Famous movies from the 1920s until present day all evoke memories in the audience. After the film is completed, the guide thanks everyone for visiting the ride, and the vehicles return to the soundstage area where more guests await their journey into the movies. So let's talk about these final three scenes, because this did not pan out as planned even just a few months before the attraction opened.
Yeah, let me tell you, they were hoping for Universal at that point. And MGM's like, I don't know about this whole thing.
So the reason the finale scene is in such a large room is because the plans were for a recreation of the Emerald City scene from The Wizard of Oz, but they had to be scrapped. The scene would have had two tracks, one for the gangster version and one for the bank robber, culminating in the villain character coming out from behind the famous curtain to take a bow for their performance. This scene did not make it into the attraction because MGM was not willing to give additional licensing to Disney for the park, and Disney could not afford to buy it on the park's budget. This also forced Disney to cut the tornado scene, using wind machines that were instead used for the rushed edition of the Fantasia Sorcerer's Apprentice scene. So that room, the reason why the wall is angled like this is because it's supposed to be a twister you're looking at, but instead they did a quick paint job on it to make it look like the rocks that Mickey stands on in the Sorcerer's Apprentice scene. And so on that screen, you would have seen the house flying by and the other items in the twister, and the wind machine obviously was there to make it feel like you were in the twister. But then luckily they had finished the other two parts of the scene. So they finished Munchkin Land and they finished Dorothy and everyone looking towards the Emerald City, but they had not gotten to those other two scenes in full yet. So
I don't understand. So they ran out of money?
Yeah.
No,
MGM ran out of money.
ran out of
MGM
licensing.
realized apparently that it was separate licensing that would allow them to do the Wizard of Oz, or at least certain scenes of it, and Disney wasn't willing to pay at that point what was, I guess, a giant fee. Like they were trying to rake them over the coals. And I think Eisner was just like, forget it.
I thought MGM was the one that was like.
It's unclear if it all completely was owned by MGM at that point or not. Because you got to remember, Time Warner bought The Wizard of Oz at some point to air, because Turner wanted to air it on network television, which had never been done before. The Wizard of Oz had never been shown on TV, and that was a big deal. And so MGM, I don't think, had the full rights. It's not completely clear, but I don't believe MGM had the full rights to Wizard of Oz.
But I thought MGM kind of chickened out of the whole theme park venture in general.
They did, but it was almost a separate thing from this.
Oh, so they were two unrelated issues.
That's what it sounds like. No one's ever had a real clear answer on it. One way or another, they could not find a way to finish the Wizard of Oz scenes. So we got Fantasia and we got the film montage, which honestly, I like the film montage. I always did.
I actually really love it because it really encompasses the movie.
And it touches on a whole lot of stuff that the ride just doesn't have time
to. The only thing is that it's very clear it was not the original ending in terms of the room.
Yeah.
Like it's this giant, expansive room with like a tiny little, so it really feels like but the movie itself is finished. And honestly, I don't know why Disney hasn't done this for other past attractions. They really should release that on a special Blu-ray or something when this could put like they did with the Back to the Future ride, because that was a brilliant idea.
That was really neat.
I bought that just for the ride,
and it was worth it. And they did all the pre-shows, like the whole outside loop and everything.
And they put the little things like in front. Well, Disney should do that.
It's a real shame.
There's a huge licensing issue with that. That's
why, well, I see what you're saying, because it is a bunch of movies they don't own, but they've also been running this montage for years.
Yeah, I mean, they could have certainly written that in to a contract or something.
But nobody did. That's a very recent thing. You look at DVDs from shows that even started in 2005, right?
Is Ron,
you broke up for a second and it just paused on DVD.
Someone restart the Ron.
So if you look at even DVDs from shows like the first season of How I Met Your Mother, some of the music that they licensed to air was not licensed for the DVD. This is why a lot of those MTVs and things like Muppet Babies are not on DVD.
Did he do that on purpose? Did he do that on purpose?
No, it's my wife's probably streaming something on this signal.
That was exactly the same
Tell her to
place.
stop streaming those MTV shows that don't have the music license.
That's right.
On DVD.
Yeah. Don't be streaming. Just go buy the DVD.
New inside joke is born.
Nick is
inside joke is born.
Poor Nick.
New inside joke.
So
it's not really an inside joke. We're on live. This is airing right now.
It's a very wide open joke.
It'll be an inside joke when we do it later on a later podcast.
DVDs.
Maybe a parade later in the year.
All right. Trying to get back on topic here. Here's a question. If they didn't put the Fantasia scene in, this would be a great movie ride essentially admitting that none of Disney's movies were really that great.
Yeah.
The montage had Disney stuff in it.
Yeah, but none of the scenes in the attraction.
Poppins.
Mary Poppins.
Mary
I
Poppins.
guess Mary Poppins. Okay, but
wasn't
no
that the
animated
only-
ones.
Only real Oscar winner
Animation
too?
was in the finale, though. Yeah.
You honestly
You were building an animation building.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh,
right. It was the
film.
whole. It was the whole other part of the park.
Yeah, there was no reason.
No,
that's very true.
very true at the time. But what I would have done is literally take this, especially since we're experiencing basically a second golden age or a third. I forget, like since the early '90s of Disney animation. Instead of making this what is it? Are you downing scotch there, Jason? Is that like just have a whole bottle of
Is it
scotch?
Scotch?
Is that because you were you were on the main screen when you took a swig, Jason?
What is
So
that?
It's,
I can't. You're muted.
Too much scotch.
Sorry, I'm trying to take a swig of scotch while no one's looking. And as it goes, it puts me on the main screen. I muted so you can't hear me swallow.
I didn't.
And
I
then
didn't. I
somebody- How did I get
All right,
on the main
Muggsy.
screen?
Anyway, what I was saying is that now that the animation area is basically kaput for Star Wars and stuff, this should have been the place to put Big Hero 6, Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen, Zootopia.
There's a million different things they could have done with the Great
what-
Movie Ride,
you
whether
know what
it's the
they-
live action library or the animated library or both.
Maybe
If
it
they
should
wanted
be a
Disney
ride.
IPs, they could have certainly ripped out every scene that wasn't a Disney IP and done something.
They
This
could
is
have
like-
put in a whole bunch of Mickey Mouse scenes.
Or that, even the great Mickey
Yeah.
Mouse ride that goes through his different eras.
Yeah,
would have
As
been
opposed to his recent
The
cartoons
Ren and-
that people
yeah.
watch while they fall asleep. at
his Ren
Disney
and
resorts.
Stimpy,
Yeah.
era, as we call it. Which, listen, I'm not to be a complete old crank. Some of them are kind of funny, but
But we'll get there. We have to talk about that at the end anyway.
it's
So let's,
very adventure timey,
Yeah.
Ren and Stimpy-ish shit.
let's not get into that just yet.
It's too painful for
We'll get
Tom.
there. Well, no, we have a lot to talk about still.
No, come on, Tom. It's 10 o'clock. You said we were going to end at 10.
Nothing happens.
Calm down.
for
Oh, you should have
20
known
years.
better.
I'm going to try to get us out of here by 11. Everybody calm down.
I have to go watch a movie on DVD.
If all had gone according to plan,
Bob
in that
Chapek
final...
would not be around right now.
Yeah, I agree with
and
that.
we'd be done already.
The
'cause it-
final... Because this, we wouldn't be doing this segment.
Yeah.
We'd still be doing Universe Energy. If all had gone according to plan, the Wizard of Oz himself in the final scene would have introduced an audio animatronics montage of the attraction. The walls between there it is. The walls between the two theaters would lift and reveal all figures from along the ride, as well as some characters who didn't appear in the ride,
That's
such as
super
R2D2, C3PO, Rocky, and even at one point, hey, who are those three guys on the rooftop back there with things strapped to their back?
Oh
Who
my
are
God.
those guys?
The Rocketeer.
Shut up. I think those are the
Oh, wait.
Ghostbusters.
I think it's the Three Amigos.
Shut up. Even though there was 4 Ghostbusters and we're leaving out someone of importance.
Why do we always leave out Winston?
Poor Winston.
Poor Winston.
Yeah, so there's the ghost. This is the original rendering for the final scene. So the cowboy and the gangster would have revealed themselves to be the man behind the curtain, essentially,
And not murdered.
and not murdered through movie magic. And the walls and everything would have lifted away, and you would have had this cool montage of all these great movie characters. You see even Patton's up there. So a bunch of characters that weren't even in the ride. Mickey, characters
It's
not
Pat?
represented in audio animatronic form in the ride would have been represented as so in the finale. And so you might be asking Ghostbusters, but that went to Universal. Ghostbusters is not a Universal film. Ghostbusters was
Columbia
Ghostbusters?
TriStar.
Columbia. So at the time in the 80s, Universal and Disney are pretty much fighting over every movie franchise they don't own for theme park rights. So as I showed you before or earlier in the night, I have this giant script from 1986 for Great Moments at the Movies, very early version of the Great Movie Ride. And I went through it, and a lot of the scenes are the same. Obviously, a lot of the dialogue's different and stuff. And there are some scenes and movies that don't otherwise appear in the attraction that are in this early script. But the one that really caught my attention was this one, where Muggsy would say, and I'm reading from the gangster version, directly above the skyline of New York City, the night sky boils with thunder, clouds, and lightning. Muggsy says, hey, it's the Big Apple. The Ghostbusters theme song begins to play. On a building in the New York skyline, the Ghostbusters sign lights up. Ghosts swirl around the buildings. There's an enormous thunderclap and a flash of light caused by the team of Ghostbusters igniting their, it says, lasers.
Clearly, Disney knew.
They're igniting their lasers.
I'm firing the lasers.
It's
Ignite
a
the
proton
lasers.
pack, Ashley. Don't be ridiculous.
And you don't ignite it. You just pull the trigger for crying
Turn
out
it
loud.
on. And Muggsy goes, it's the heat. On a wall above the tram stands the 4 Ghostbusters, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson. They fire their nuclear-driven neutrino wand. See, this has the right terminology underneath. At the beloved Mr. Stay Puft, a 112-foot-tall marshmallow man. Meanwhile, the announcer goes, and now to the roof of the Shandor building for the thrilling climax of Ghostbusters. On the wall to your right, you'll see the stars, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson, bravely defending the city of New York from the menace of the monstrous Mr. Stay Puft, the Marshmallow Man. The following dialogue is under music and sound effects. It is therefore a small part of the overall rather noisy scene. Venkman says, well, there's something you don't see every day. Stance, I tried to think of the most harmless thing, something I love from my childhood, something that could never possibly destroy us.
Mickey Mouse.
Mr. Stay Puft. Nice thinking, Ray. Stance, we used to it's basically the movie dialogue at this point. And of course, he even does the I'm terrified beyond the capacity for rational thought, blah, blah, blah. The tram passes through the arched opening beneath Gozer's temple. Mist rolls through the open temple doors. Gozer gestures menacingly. On the wall above the tram, 2 stone terror dogs come to life, their eyes glowing red. They are still partly encased in stone. It cracks loudly when they move. They glare down at passengers in the tram and growl fiercely. And there you go. And that would lead you into the Indiana Jones scene.
Too
At that point. So
expensive.
this would have been between, so after Alien, you would have gone into Ghostbusters, which would have been halfway between scary and funny. And then that would have led you into the Indiana Jones scene. And of course, obviously, Universal ended up with those theme park rights in the end and did a stage show that lasted all of 5 minutes, but was wonderful. And since then, the Ghostbusters haven't really had a theme park presence other than some piece of garbage shooting ride in Dubai. That's terrible. Anyway. So the Ghostbusters were going to be in the Great Movie Ride at one point. So I've heard that before, but this is the first, other than the art, this is the first real concrete proof that that scene existed. And so much so that this 86 script has every other scene that made it into the ride, and the only one missing is Ghostbusters. So it was really far along, and I'd really love if we can get a hold of somebody that was involved in that negotiating. I'd love to know how they were so close to getting Ghostbusters and suddenly Universal stole it. It's kind of intriguing, but anyway. Needless to say, 10-year-old Tom his head would have exploded on this ride. So, but it didn't happen. So, some fun facts about the attraction that did.
Hold on. So if Disney and Universal were fighting so hard over something like Ghostbusters, why didn't Universal use it for more than they did? Why didn't they?
I mean, it had its own attraction. The show was a headliner at opening. Absolutely.
Okay.
The show was not a minor thing, and they also had the characters come out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just by 1990.
But I mean, imagine ride through Ghostbuster ride with, animatronics and everything.
Yeah, and the problem is the same as MGM in that they both started racing to open, so no one was focused on building rides.
Mm.
And so what Universal did was basically turn portions of the existing tram tour into rides because it was already developed for the most part. Although they did end up making them a little more complicated and ran into a lot of problems with that. For the most part, that's why a lot of anything not done before was a show. So Ghostbusters was a show. What else did they have opening? There was a show there. What was it? Miami Vice was the show? Was that here
That was
or was
on
that
the
Hollywood?
water.
That was on the water, but yeah, it was Miami Vice.
It wasn't. I don't know if it was Miami Vice per se, but it was very like that kind of concept.
Anyway, so that anything they didn't have kind of pre-developed from the tram tour ended up being a show. And the same thing happened with MGM. They had the great movie ride, but then there was almost not another ride in existence except Star Tours finally came along, but that was because it could be easily cloned from California. So, yeah.
Yup.
Let's make Tom sadder. Not only is the great movie ride closing, let's talk about how Ghostbusters doesn't have a theme park presence. Please. Fun facts about the great movie ride. The track is 1,928 feet long.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I think so. Matching the year that the real Chinese theater opened in Hollywood. The building is 95,000 square feet. The ride is 22 minutes long, featuring 59 audio animatronic characters. And as we said before, there are 107 handprints outside. And the Coca-Cola sponsorship ended in 1998. That's the original great movie ride, which was awesome.
So the Coke sponsorship was only like 9 years?
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, they still continued their partnership in other ways.
Right.
Let's not forget the Aquafina sponsorship of the Barnstormer. Never forget that, please.
Nope.
That lasted all of like a year.
Of course not.
I mean, you'd think those Coke bottle caps on the packs in that one scene would have made it certainly worth their while to continue the sponsorship.
Well, of course, they moved on to Ice Station Cool in 1999, so that's where the sponsorship moved to. In fairness, I think that's what actually happened.
They sponsor several things.
Well, they sponsored the American Adventure at one point too, along with American Express.
Yeah, American Express.
Yeah.
Ice Station Cool wasn't sponsored by Coke?
Yeah,
no, it was.
No, you said before 99.
It opened.
That's when it came in.
Oh.
That's not an opening day Epcot attraction.
Oh.
No,
I don't know
Ice
if it was
Station
99, but it was
Cool?
Ice
somewhere around
Station
there.
Cool, not Club Cool.
No, right.
The older version with the caveman frozen in the wall.
And the ice machine. That only opened in 99?
Yes. Yes.
No.
I lost all control of it.
I don't know. I swear that was open before.
This can't possibly get any worse. It's worse.
Is this Joyce?
What is this, Joyzy? No! No! Get away! No, go.
This is what's coming now.
What are you doing? We're not there yet.
We're there now.
No, we're not.
The whole ride's getting burned to the ground.
Set those time coordinates for 2001.
We're going to go to Ice Station Cool.
June of 98.
In 2001, after losing a legal battle, Disney was forced to construct a giant sorcerer's hat from Fantasia as part of the 100 Years of Magic to block the view of Grauman's Chinese Theater and to provide the park with a new icon that could be marketed and sold. Disney also decided at this time that it would be best to eliminate the celebrity handprint and footprint ceremonies as well just a year later. It's funny. This different fact says 1999 was the last handprint, Michael J. Fox. 2002 is probably wrong. That sounds way too late. Let's go with this 99 one. That sounds reasonable. So Michael J. Fox in 99. This could easily be checked by walking outside. I should do that. Anyway. In accordance, the spires at the top of the Great Movie Ride were removed, so it would be less visible behind the hat, including the one that retracted for a better viewing of Sorcerer Mickey Mouse during Sorcery in the Sky fireworks.
So can we talk about this moronic lawsuit that forced them to construct this giant hat?
Yeah.
Like, because that's the story, but I don't know any of the details.
There was new ownership of the Chinese theater that almost pretty much refused to renew the deal.
Yeah.
So Disney had a deal.
Yeah.
So Disney basically
licensing agreement, basically.
Right. So here's what I'm not understanding. Though.
My understanding is Disney could renew the deal technically on their own. It was Disney's decision if they wanted to give the money on an annual basis or whatever it was. And then the new ownership said, no, we're not going for this. I think they wanted more money or whatever. And so they all went to court, and the judge, for whatever reason, said Disney's contract, I think, was with the original party. And so when ownership changed, the new owner did not have to honor that agreement. The name of the Chinese theater also changed, which I think hurt the deal. So they renamed new ownership and they renamed the theater. Whatever it became, it went from Grauman's to Mann's or whatever.
Mann's, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so the deal no longer existed, basically. So, and Disney did not want to strike a deal with the new owner. I think they wanted too much money or whatever.
Right.
And
well,
so what happened was Disney had developed this sorcerer's hat in advance to go out in front of Hollywood Studios. So where the planter is outside the park, they were going to build this giant hat, which at one point had 2 Ferris wheels. Both of the ears were Ferris wheels at one point, which may or may not have become the stationary and swinging Mickey's Fun Wheel, believe it or not. I think it ended up becoming that. And so this icon would have had Ferris wheels and would have been outside the park and it would have been massive. And then when all this happened, they were like, well, we got to do something. And they were like, well, we're not going to rip the facade off. What are we going to do? And the only thing to do was plant the hat there. And I guess they figured after the 100 Years of Magic, they'd address it. And then, of course, attendance was in a severe slump after 9/11.
Right.
So they just decided to not even
leave it there.
Which is exactly also what happened with the wand at Epcot.
Sure. But what I want to go back to is Disney striking a deal to license the use of the facade of Grauman's Chinese Theater for their theme park centerpiece, and not somehow writing into that deal that they get rights to it for 50 years or something. Like, why would you strike a deal which requires an annual renewal when you're building a multi-million-dollar theme park based around this building? Doesn't make sense.
It sounds like to me the wrench got thrown in when it was sold and renamed.
But there's certainly easy ways to write contracts that exist and get transferred.
Well, but it was probably a contract where they never foresaw. I mean, it was Grom's for what, 70 years?
Commercial.
They probably never thought that it would ever be sold, let alone renamed.
Commercial leasing is usually for, the option is with the renter for a long. So whenever it was bought, there had to be some sort of extenuating circumstances for the judge to find no, it's no longer their option. And I was looking it up. It looks like it was bought with Warner Brothers and Paramount in a partnership bought the theater in 2000.
There you go.
So
that
would be
explains
why
some of it.
they're going to fight it.
Okay.
And play hardball to screw over Disney.
Yeah.
Because Warner Brothers and Paramount have these spectacular theme parks with the Chinese theater and the facade they want to use.
Well,
Batman the Ride.
And sometimes those renewals,
just fun.
Sometimes those renewals, the price is set by, so that could have been that, and it could have just been ridiculous.
Yeah, sure.
And it's also at the low point for Disney parks, pretty much. So they were not looking to spend that money. They'd rather build this giant sorcerer's hat.
They could also just not want to have paid those 2 people.
That's also valid. Eisner certainly had enough enemies everywhere. So
true.
Where than possible.
Now,
So go ahead.
Well, does this come later? I don't want to get ahead, but why were they able to take down the hat? Are we going to get
we'll
to
get there?
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
We're not telling. It's secret.
We're in 2001 right now.
Cool.
So also around this time, interestingly enough, rumors indicated that they might be closing the Great Movie Ride for a new attraction, a villains-themed attraction that would be simulator-based. So from roughly 1999 to 2003, even in 2003, there was a rumored closing date. Funny enough, that rumored closing date in 2003 is only 2 days off of this year's closing date. August 15th, 2003, for the longest time was a rumored closing date for the Great Movie Ride. And for whatever reason, they never pulled the trigger on it. The Villains Ride was scrapped.
Well, that was a very low point in terms of attendance.
Yeah, which may have saved the Great Movie Ride.
Yep.
And I think they also wanted to address the facade. That was another big part of it.
Well, that would have certainly helped. Absolutely.
Yeah, they were going to redo the facade, and it'll be a completely different thing.
Has any material on this villains ride ever surfaced that we found?
No, but enough people have talked about it where it's definitely real. I have talked to people who have briefly mentioned it, who would have been involved, and it definitely existed. And I think it was a competing project because at the same time they were developing the villain mount, which you talked about a little bit in our last Back to the Future.
Yeah.
So there was all these ideas because the villains were deemed a valuable IP at the time. In the early 2000s, they were deemed a property that was selling well, and they wanted to do more with it. But for whatever reason, the attraction never happened. But what almost happened on several occasions is another great movie ride. Plans called for the Great Movie Ride to be the main attraction for the Disney MGM Studios Paris theme park, or Europe at one point it was called, which was scrapped due to the early financial difficulties of the Euro Disney Resort. Years later, when the resort began turning profits, a show business theme park went into development again, the Walt Disney Studios, opening in 2002, although minus the Great Movie Ride. A show called Cinemagique was built in lieu of the ride due to claims by Disney management that the French preferred shows to ride through attraction. Cinemagique actually was recently closed with no replacement, so it's very funny that this sort of Great Movie Ride inspired show was canned about the same time.
Apparently, the French prefer nothing to shows.
No, apparently Disney management or the old Paris management preferred
nothing.
But I think that'll
Such
change.
a good show.
Maybe it'll be the Mickey ride. 3 separate attempts were made by Imagineering to bring the Great Movie Ride to California. First were the plans to incorporate the attraction into the proposed Disney MGM Studio backlot project, which we have artwork for. Michael would be so kind as to throw that up for everybody. There it is. This would have been a 40-acre movie studio-themed retail and entertainment district that was planned for downtown Burbank, California during the late 80s. Several years later, plans called for the ride to serve as the centerpiece of the proposed Hollywood Land at Disneyland, which would have been added to the park during the Disney decade. It was actually announced. Due to budget cuts, Hollywood Land was canceled. And later, plans called for the ride to be built as the part of the Hollywood Pictures backlot at Disney California Adventure. But budget cuts in the park's original development forced the ride's projected cost to be spent on smaller and less expensive attractions. Superstar Limo was born. Superstar Limo was deemed a modern, cheaper alternative to the Great Movie Ride. They decided that crowds would rather go on a fanciful trip and see representations of celebrities rather than a tour through the history of movies or see these celebrities in the roles that made them famous.
And that's when you just...
And who made that decision?
Whoever was involved in Disney's California Adventure.
Well, that explains a lot right there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that park had a lot of problems. Needless to say, Superstar Limo didn't even last a year. It was deemed so. It was the only attraction in history deemed so bad. Actually, it's not true. There's another one. There's only been 2 attractions ever where it was deemed it was better to close them with no replacement than to replace them for the benefit of the overall enjoyment of the guest.
Cinemagique.
One was Superstar Limo. No, Cinemagique was beloved. Number 2 was The Legend of Captain Jack Sparrow at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Poor Jason Sorrell. I hope he's enjoying Fast and the Furious Supercharged.
Oh, my God.
Moving forward, if we may, in December 2007, back to the Great Movie Ride, the costumes were changed. Gone were the old theater usher outfits with the suspenders and a beret and a bow tie that had existed. They were replaced with a gray suit jacket with a button featuring a logo for the ride. This was very controversial at the time, actually in the WDWNT era. Just a couple months after we started, I remember talking about this. Going to these gray suit jackets, which were kind of
boring,
a more later generation usher kind of costume. But yeah, definitely more on the boring side. And the old costume, so iconic, the suspenders and the bow tie and the beret. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't ruin the ride, but it was a weird change.
It didn't ruin the ride like Bob Chapek managed to do.
Yeah. The rumor with that always was that they felt the old costume wasn't flattering to all body sizes. So they decided to go with the suit jacket.
There are a lot of costumes that aren't flattering to all body sizes.
Well,
Also true.
yeah. Well, I guess this one they wanted to.
Like
people are staring at you the whole time.
Like the lifeguard costumes at Typhoon Lagoon.
Well, they can choose between the white shirt and the shorts, or the Baywatch thing. They have the option. Anyway, yeah, we should definitely fat shame some people. Just this one. Anyway,
speaking of things that close,
send your hate mail. So years passed, and suddenly on October 24th, 2014, announced first on WDWNT.com, mind you, that the Sorcerer's Hat would be removed. The Sorcerer's Hat was closed to guests on January 7, 2015, meaning they'd have to walk down Sunset Boulevard to buy pins now. And demolition began quickly. On May 1st, 2015, the walls around the area came down, revealing the new center stage area, which has since been a stage for the most part for Star Wars: A Galaxy Far, Far Away, more often than not. The reason this happened, there was a number of reasons given. Number one, ownership of the Chinese theater changed again, and they were able to strike a deal where they were able to use it. Still not on merchandise, but they could use it on promotional materials and stuff like that. And so that was worked out. And the other reason was apparently the people at Lucasfilm in developing Star Wars Land did not want the hat visible from their Star Wars project. So they were concerned about seeing this big blue tip, over the sky. Shut up. Over the skyline of the park.
Wait. So Lucasfilm doesn't want to see the tip of the blue hat
from Star Wars Land.
From Star Wars Land. But
which at this point was a Star Wars Land based on the original trilogy.
Right.
Well, of course.
But it would have been okay to see the top of the wand from Star Wars Land over top of Spaceship Earth.
How does that even factor in?
I don't know, because you could see the wand from studios.
But the wand was gone several years before this.
Yeah. But they're okay with seeing a blue Hayden Christensen at the end of Return of the Jedi.
This is based on the original trilogy.
Oh, the
But we're
original
not
trilogy.
seeing his blue tip, so.
Okay.
It's on the DVD.
Oh, boy.
You know, when you watch the DVD.
This will never air again.
Oh, you say that all the time.
It's
Yeah,
called the
no,
joke.
it always
Everybody
does.
calm down.
So can we talk a little bit about the hat construction? Because I've actually seen pieces of the hat.
Pieces? You've seen pieces?
Pieces.
I've seen that big blue tip.
No, it actually is not the tip. But I've seen... it's so obviously the hat had to be designed to be pretty strong and long lasting. It's actually
that's what she said.
I'm going to take a swig of whiskey now.
Yeah, I'm just doing it on camera.
Yeah,
you're not joking. That's empty already.
I know, it is almost empty.
Go ahead, make your point about the hat.
So the hat is actually constructed. It's probably about 4 inches thick, like the blue upper part of the hat.
I can't.
You're only making this worse. Twice.
I'm just trying to share some information that I have.
You are aboard a live YouTube broadcast. Something has gone wrong.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
No!
What are you
Get
doing?
out
Put
of
up the
here.
paddlefish. So the hat is constructed from like a carbon fiber resin.
So it's hollow, Jason?
It's not completely it's not completely solid. No. There's like a
Well, yeah, because if
honeycomb
you stood underneath and looked up, there was that lighting rig, but you could see that it was all hollow up in there.
No, I don't mean the inside of the hat was hollow. I mean like the outer portion, the blue portion of the hat was constructed from a 4-inch thick piece of like carbon fiber resin that was partially hollow, like a honeycomb type structure.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what it was a lot like? You know when you buy glass stuff at the shops and they wrap it
like
with
the
that
packing
brown
material?
paper? Yeah,
Oh,
that's exactly.
you mean like this? Did it look like this?
It looked exactly like that.
Why do I have this?
I have no idea.
Because you brought your new glass.
I love that you referenced wrapping paper that I happen to have here.
Of course you do.
It looks. That's what the inside.
That's bizarre, but anyway. Go ahead.
So the hat's this like hard plastic resin where the inside is hollow, so it's actually very strong but very lightweight. And when they
that's what she said.
When they took it down, because it was so strong, when they took it down, what they had to do was they cut out holes in the hat, and then they put like a hook from a crane into the hole in the hat and held it up, and then they cut like a big square piece of it so the crane could lift up a big chunk of the hat.
It sounds like a Milton Bradley game.
I'm just telling you what I know because I've seen chunks of like a cross-section piece of that.
They did take it down in like big sections, which was interesting.
They took it down in big sections and put it in the garbage truck under high security so it wouldn't end up in Tom's apartment.
I didn't want that.
or at Theme Park Connection.
Yeah.
So it ended up in pins.
It ended up with the backlot tour trams in that metal yard in forget where.
Did they do a pin on that one? They did, right?
No, it
The hat,
wasn't.
the hat had a pin. The hat had a pin.
It did not end up in the most of the hat did not end up in the metal yard. It wasn't metal.
Well, all the steel did from inside.
Yeah, the steel did, but not the actual hat material itself. That just went to the junkyard.
Who shot the hole in my sombrero?
Anyways, I'm done.
Good.
Put myself on mute.
All right. On November 25th, 2014, a major update of the Great Movie Ride was announced. The reason for the removal of the hat apparently also timed with because they could have. Well, they could have done it later, but they decided to go along with this update of the Great Movie Ride. They should just take down the hat now. Thanks to this partnership with Turner Classic Movies. Quote, TCM will help Disney make changes to the Great Movie Ride in early 2015. In return, Turner Classic Movies will essentially be credited as a sponsor or presenter of the Great Movie Ride, which is operated at the park since it opened in 1989. So then the New York Times then confirmed the story, along with the fact that TCM would get a programming block such as The Wonderful World of Color every now and then, which they still do. And the following day, the extent of the changes were announced. TCM branding would be integrated into the attraction's marquee. As well, new exhibits curated by Turner Classic Movies would be placed in the display windows outside of the attraction. Also outside, guests will find a new attraction poster. The poster didn't really change. And banners hanging outside of the facade, those happened. In the queue, guests will find new digital movie posters and a new pre-show video hosted by Robert Osborne. Robert will give fascinating insight to movies guests will experience while on the ride. The finale of the attraction will feature an all-new montage of classic movie moments, and after exiting, guests will have a photo opportunity with a classic movie theme. And while announced the year before, on May 30th, 2015, finally the new version of the Great Movie Ride debuted. A lot of people don't like this version. I don't have the problems with it that other people did, because I thought people said the role of the driver or the tour guide was diminished, and it was, but I think a big part of that was they were getting real inconsistent in the talent level, for lack of a better term. I think the quality of the tour guides had kind of diminished. And so
same as with the Jungle Cruise, and same as with Living with the Land, and same as with the Backlot Tour, because they cut these people's pay. No one with any talent wanted to work there because they could go down the road to Universal and get a much better job with much better pay. So it's not like they had a problem with the cast members all of a sudden.
They had a problem
it's that they didn't want to pay the people what they deserve to be paid for that type of position. That's all. They certainly could have gotten well-talented people to do that role. Yeah, they had them.
They did for many years,
They have talented people in entertainment. They're just not.
Where did they go? Well, they left because they didn't get paid.
Yeah, they went
Universal
to
gave
the Diagon Alley.
Universal had a spiel pay bonus for ride ops, and Disney did not.
There you go.
I think that's gone now, though. I'm
But I don't think there's any spilling attractions left. So
yeah, that's why Universal
Yeah.
still had. That's absolutely what happened. Universal did have spilling rides left, but now they've since closed all of them.
Disaster would have been Earthquake had it. I don't know if Disaster did because it was
Disaster
listed the video.
No, Disaster still had the guy in the pre-show.
Yeah.
When they cast you. Yeah,
Yeah.
But I think they might have moved that to entertainment.
it's possible.
Because when I was there, you ran the ride and the thing. There were two that you just rotated through the whole system.
Yeah. So what else? Yeah. I don't have a problem with this. Robert Osborne is a more than fitting host of the Great Movie Ride. I think the pre-show, while I missed the pre-show that was just the film trailers, I think this 47-minute thing they put out there in the queue, like Scott said, the old one was wonderful, but it was real short.
It was.
So you'd
it looped
see it a couple
lot.
times usually.
Yeah.
In this case, you have a 47-minute, really well put together pre-show thanks to Turner Classic Movies. They did a great job putting this thing together. And it's a really fascinating and quick look through movie history that teaches you a lot in a very short amount of time. I thought the Robert Osborne lines were fine. He makes sense as a host. There's nothing wrong with it. And I even thought my biggest fear was the finale montage because they were going to change it. And the finale montage was pretty perfect before, but I thought, again, they did a pretty masterful job updating the finale montage. I thought this refurb put new life in the ride. I didn't think it was a negative change at all. I know a lot of people don't necessarily agree with that, but I thought this was a nice update. And it made sense. TCM is probably the most fitting company or organization that could have been involved with this attraction.
I really like Robert Osborne, and I feel that since they couldn't get consistent talent to, do the be the actual guide, then I think it obviously makes the most sense to do that. Because I thought it was really well done.
There's too many dogs on this show.
Sorry.
I don't care. It's fine.
Can't have too many dogs.
It's true.
Does anyone not like this version?
I don't think I ever actually saw it.
Yeah, completely honest, I have not seen it.
I miss the full spieling, but at the same time, I enjoy the new. So I think I'm kind of in the same vein as Tom, where I do kind of like it, but I don't know. I mean, they're both good. Neither
I
one
certainly
of them
don't
is
mind it.
bad.
I certainly don't mind it.
I was just happy that we're getting to keep the Great Movie Ride.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean,
That
in
is
this-
kind of not surprising, but is surprising that they breathed new life into it not that long ago, and now
Dead.
it's closing.
in this day and age, when Disney has incredibly difficult times getting corporate sponsors, I don't think there's any complaint that you could make about getting TCM to sponsor the Great Movie Ride. I mean, that's like a match made in heaven almost, really.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so I have
Like
no
Coke
complaints at all.
Doing Ice Station Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And it was an overall corporate deal, which they love. They were getting their content shown on TCM. Like it
Which is
just,
that part of the partnership still going strong? Or
I
no?
don't
Did
see that. I don't think
fall
that's
away?
going to end. I don't think their television partnership is going anywhere.
Sporadic as is, though.
It is. It's only like
Yeah.
every other month or something. It's real weird.
But it does seem very odd to me because it was always kind of alluded to that it would be not temporary, but it wasn't going to be a long partnership to sponsor the movie ride, is the way it always sounded to me. So why did they even bother?
I don't
And
think
if you
that
go
was a
for-
thought until last August, and we'll get there in a moment. But I mean, that was only a year into the overhaul, so it was kind of
I mean,
weird.
but
Yeah.
still, you put this money and this time and this effort to update it and get Robert Osborne to record all of this. And I mean, to me, somebody had to have at least had the idea in the back of their head that the movie ride is not going to last that much longer anyway. So
I mean, it's possible. I mean, attractions can go through a real quick development cycle. I mean,
yeah.
so it's possible that they were kicking around a new ride, but maybe it wasn't necessarily for that space yet. And then somebody in management was like, "That's where we should."
You know what really pissed off Tom Corliss?
Yeah.
Because it's all about Tom.
Confirmed.
Yeah, confirmed. My feelings are hurt.
He broke all of our other stories. We'll show him.
Yeah, we'll teach him. What is he like? That one park.
You know,
Get him!
And even if they had the idea that it might be being replaced in the next few years, I mean, still, I think it was a solid deal to make. It did refresh the ride for a little bit.
Making this ride relevant while you're closing 15 others in the park might be.
This is also true.
Right, but I mean, it did some other things. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's a good point. It did some other things as far as I do like the digital movie posters and that kind of thing. I mean, it did it help refresh the exhibits actually inside the hall at all, or was that unrelated?
Well, yeah, they got. Oh, well,
I feel like
that was completely related, but they
Yeah,
got.
the dresses are on loan from because they have the Casablanca dresses, which are Gone with the Wind dresses, which are on loan from TCM or whatever. So there are exhibits in there that are related to them, and the two apparently the stuff out in the windows outside is curated by TCM as well. So.
I love the new pre-show. It's absolutely wonderful. But
it's a nice documentary.
I do not like that diminished role of the cast members on the attraction itself. And I guess I find it funny, like, because I think I'm the only one still in this group that is for the whole change. That is rooting for the Mickey
You
ride.
most definitely are.
But yet you guys are okay seemingly with the change in the cast members' role when that
because they were already terrible.
Yeah, I mean, in the past 10 rides, I've had maybe 2 that were good.
And it really wasn't that diminished. Like you're talking about maybe they lost 30 to 45 seconds of speaking total. It wasn't that much.
I mean, yeah, they still did. They still did, the shooting out or the shootout and the scene with stealing the ruby and all. So they still
when
had
Robert
a part
Osborne
to play.
when Robert Osborne's disembodied voice goes to get popcorn.
Well, it's weird. I also find it very odd to just put down your microphone and turn on Robert Osborne. It doesn't fit. It doesn't
They are
work that
both
well.
your hosts. Robert Osborne and
well,
your
then they
guy.
showed the thing where they talk to each other or something. Hey, Robert. Hey.
I don't think
Well,
it was
they don't.
Hey, Robert.
I think with that timing could be an issue, though.
Oh no!
Something
Of
goes
course. I just think it's a very awkward. It feels like a very awkward moment where they put it down and you listen to Robert Osborne for a few minutes and then the tour guide comes back on. I don't like that very much. I think that takes away a bit from the charm of the ride.
I don't know. Maybe because I watch a lot of TCM, I was happy with it.
But I mean, again, isn't it bad enough though that you got a degraded cast member performance in the gangster and cowboy scenes? I mean, like, isn't that enough to be like, maybe, like, if they're not going to go the extra mile, like you were talking about, Jason, maybe to pay to get better talent there? Why do we want, this ride in that?
Because the great
sake?
movie ride is so much more than the cast member interaction. Like, yeah, that's a huge part of it, but
I don't know. I'm with
these
Nick.
scenes
That's
are glorious. The Wizard of Oz scene is beautiful. The ride is a work of art in so many places. And could it have used some help with the cast member? Absolutely. But at the end, I think it's a wonderful representation of all the movies that are in it. And I don't. The cast members were bad, but not to the point where it ruins the ride.
The camp added something at times, even.
Yeah, like and the thing is, 30s movies did have bad Western and gangster accents. That's the joke of it.
True.
The whole Joyzy thing, it's overplaying that accent that every actor put on in every gangster movie back then. People didn't really talk like that. It's made more dramatic. But anyway.
Yeah.
So, the update happened. In August of 2015, the rooftop spires finally returned to the building. And in September, a new post-show screen was added after the finale room for the cars on the right side to see as they headed towards the unload area. So they just kept being these rolling changes as time went on. Meanwhile, August 3rd, 2016, WDWNT.com reported that there were plans to replace the Great Movie Ride in 2019 or 2020 with a Mickey Mouse attraction. The rumor, of course, went silent for a bit after that, only to resurface the week before the 2017 D23 Expo. Then at the Expo, the project was formally announced by Disney Parks and Resorts Chairman Bob Chapek, who is also a robot. Joking. We don't know.
Did he
Can't confirm that he's a robot.
I cannot confirm that he is a robot.
He may be a cyborg.
Here's the release.
After you bumped into him, wasn't there like a little oil smudge on your sleeve?
The first ever Mickey-themed ride-through attraction, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, will come to Disney's Hollywood Studios. With a new original story and Disney's saying lovable attraction theme song, this new state-of-the-art ride-through attraction will take guests on a journey inside the wacky and unpredictable world of Disney Channel's Emmy Award-winning Mickey Mouse cartoon shorts using new technologies that transform that flat cartoon world into an incredible dimensional experience. At the presentation, this was called by Imagineer Kevin Rafferty, who's working on the project, 2.5D. So it'll be 3D without 3D glasses. That's the idea. In all of this, it was never stated that the Great Movie Ride would be replaced by this attraction until the park's blog and internal documents indicated so just moments after the announcement was made. Less than a month later, the Great Movie Ride will close forever on August 13th, 2017.
Don't tell them that it's closing.
What's funny is I listened to a bit
They'll
of
get all mad.
I listened to a bit of our original Back to the Future on the Great Movie Ride, and we all pretty much agree that the Great Movie Ride will never be replaced. It'll be updated significantly. Everyone agreed on that, but never replaced. And here we are now, and it's being replaced. So obviously, this was not a thing that was expected at any point. But they are removing the Great Movie Ride. And we said it last year when the rumor originally came up. There is this driving force within the company that if there's anything in the parks that doesn't promote a property that they own, they're looking to eliminate. Which is kind of why Tower of Terror in California got targeted. Although I think with all the backlash, they have since realized they can't touch Florida. And then you look at here's the Great Movie Ride, and they've just decided with the Great Movie Ride that this is a lot of property that we don't own. We should do something else.
Here's a question. I even if so given that they want to get rid of non-Disney IP properties and replace them, all well and good. Why would they choose to close the Great Movie Ride before Star Wars Land is open?
It's nonsensical because when we talked about the rumor, we said the ride will close probably after Star Wars Land opens.
Right. So what is the driving force behind doing it so soon?
I guess they figure this park is a mess already. Let's get everything to open all at once so we don't have to have walls in this park for a while. Maybe. This park, I mean, if you've been to Hollywood Studios recently, it's a war zone. Almost, even the parking lot. It starts the moment you enter the parking lot. It is literally like the world has ended. It is like Hollywood Studios, an apocalypse.
But do they not get enough complaints that they think, hey, we could close one more ride and it's not going to increase the number of complaints we get?
I think they're definitely thinking that we just need to get this all over with.
I think it's they don't have the construction crews and they need to be able to move them from project to project as there's we need to start things as quick as possible.
Yeah. That could be.
Could it also have been the passing of Robert Osborne earlier this year?
No.
No.
I don't think
I just
no.
Could it have been since they took away the lights? And stop that.
It was all connected.
Why
the lights, and it was all connected.
Yeah.
And
they
of
might
course,
as well have just bulldozed Hollywood Studios and started.
They should
like
have.
There's like nothing.
There's nothing.
If it wasn't
there.
for Hollywood and Sunset, I'd say forget it.
I mean, you could just like do Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster and have a little back entrance over on that side and be done. Just shut the whole rest of the park down.
And they should and charge less, because that's the biggest affront, is that they're charging full day admission for.
I mean, here's the thing.
Well,
they
if you don't get a,
closed a lot of stuff, but if you don't go regularly, if you go and you see Indiana Jones and you see Disney Junior and you see Voyage of the Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, and you ride Star Tours and you see Muppet Vision and Tower and Rock and Roller Coaster, and
it does take all day.
You know, you eat. You have to eat.
That's a pretty full day.
You have You have two nighttime shows. You have Fantasmic and Star Wars Fireworks, which you can't possibly see both. You have Toy Story. I mean, there's things to do, and in honesty, we are less than a year away from 2 new attractions. So in the end, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't help that the Great Movie Ride will be closed and there'll be nothing there. This Christmas will be the only time where it's a nightmarish hellscape of capacity problem. But then next year they'll open the 2 Toy Story Land rides and they'll at least be somewhat functional again. So, next summer isn't terribly far away, and it'll be very early summer, if any. It does still seem stupid. It seems somewhat idiotic.
Well, it just seems idiotic overall, but.
It is. I think it is. And I have generally been a person that has been okay with change in a lot of places. A lot of people were against Frozen replacing Maelstrom. I had no point was against that, even though I love Maelstrom. I thought it was a good idea, and it was executed well. It's a fun, good attraction.
Meh.
And even other things that other people were very mixed on, Guardians, Tower of Terror, and a lot of those things. I thought it makes sense. You should do it. This is the one, and even Universe Energy. I love the Universe Energy, but it has been outdated for such a long time. It is clearly time for something to go. Whether Guardians is the answer or not, it is very much time for that to go. Whether or not the Great Movie Ride should close, which essentially is the spaceship Earth of Hollywood studios. It's the centerpiece attraction that encompasses the heart and soul of the park. That being replaced by a ride about a very recent series of cartoon shorts seems short-sighted and idiotic. And I said this to someone the other day. I feel like we're in this weird amalgamation where it's kind of like the Pressler and Harris era in that they're closing a lot of really meaningful things, but instead of building garbage, they're building very expensive good things, but they're also at the same time replacing very good older things. And that's kind of where we are, in that they're making what probably might be mistakes removing some of these older attractions, but at the same time, at least they're spending money and they have competent people working on replacement attractions.
You equated this with Spaceship Earth. I'm assuming you don't equate this with It's Tough to Be a Bug, right? They're both in the park icons.
Wow, he's got a point.
That's literally a completely different thing. Does It's Tough to Be a Bug encompass the theme of the park?
No.
You could argue
Is it the driving force? Was It's Tough to Be a Bug designed for Disney's Hollywood Studios, and then someone went, wait, this would make a great park. Let's move this over here.
That'd be amazing.
It's Tough to Be a Bug and animatronics tour de force with incredibly detailed scenes.
Oh, Hopper's pretty awesome.
Yeah, Hopper's awesome.
Hopper is.
I'll take Hopper
over
the
Is there 59
witch.
of him?
Well, what about the spiders that come down?
It's a completely
Spiders
different.
are pretty good.
It's a completely different.
Well, because it's inside the weenie, not like, because I would say Kilimanjaro is more of the Animal Kingdom.
And it'd be equivalent to Kilimanjaro Safari's closing. Just because if let's say they build enough rides and lands based on IPs at Animal Kingdom where people suddenly go, I don't want to see animals anymore. Are you okay with them bulldozing Kilimanjaro Safaris?
I guess
and
that's
you
a good
shouldn't
point.
be, because it's idiotic. Even if they build something grandiose in its place, it is still idiotic.
Well, and I think much like we talked about last Wednesday, that's the biggest problem with this, is not even so much that they're replacing Great Movie Ride, but what they're replacing it with. If this were
And the Mickey
great
ride is fine on its own, though. I think everybody has agreed.
Mickey Through the Ages or something, that would maybe be okay. But this mandate of basically removing Great Movie Ride just because it's IPs that we don't own, which I think was more than likely the driving force of deciding to put this in there. It's short-sighted.
And the Mickey Mouse attraction is a great idea.
It reminds me of the feelings that people have about Imagination, where it was very short-sighted, and it's going to wind up as a disaster, and then they're not going to know how to fix it, and we will have lost something that was so great and so special, and there's not going to be a way to get it back.
See, I almost think we're in a generation where I don't think they will make a bad ride.
Yeah. I could see this being their first misstep. Not that it's going to be a trajectory of like downhill from here, but I think at the same token, I think they might have gotten a little overconfident that anything they build is going to be great and people are going to love it. And I don't think that's going to be the case with this one.
I think Kevin Rafferty is a competent Imagineer. I think he's done a lot of really good things. And I don't think he's going to build a bad attraction. I in no way think the Mickey and Minnie ride will be bad. I think it will feel out of place where it's going. And I think we will, while it probably will be enjoyable and great and beloved, I think we will always lament the fact that we lost the Great Movie ride.
I think you could argue with all your points are valid, but I don't think it'll feel out of place there. I think one, especially because
there's a 2015 cartoon series playing in Grauman's Chinese Theater, and we're walking through a movie screen.
Okay. One, I think we've talked about this many times, whether the name of the park changes or not, the idea of the park is evolving, is changing, which I think that also kind of, to a degree, negates the Kilimanjaro Safaris argument.
But it's not like they're not removing Africa, and they're sure as hell not removing Hollywood and Sunset.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, that's still Hollywood Boulevard.
It's old-timey Hollywood. It's not. Let's see how the movies are made. Let's go behind the scenes.
But the Great Movie Ride doesn't go behind the scenes. The Great Movie Ride is a fanciful journey.
In the movie, in the classic old Hollywood movie,
they removed all of the behind-the-scenes rides. The Great Movie Ride is not.
Yeah, if they were to build
always felt that was in the same vein,
with the facade of, let's say, El Capitan Theater down the way somewhere, that would work. It would make sense. Putting it in Grauman's Chinese Theater in old classic Hollywood with a modern Mickey doesn't make sense.
The Great Movie Ride was the only thing holding the park together. Now Toy Story and Star Wars Land and everything remaining make even less sense.
Didn't we just say we were talking about something? I think the last time we talked about the Mickey ride, don't they actually play new movies in the Grauman's Chinese Theater?
Every once in a while,
not Disney Channel cartoon shorts.
Okay,
but regardless, it doesn't tie any of this park together. So now you have an even bigger. For as much as people complained that there was no concise theme at Hollywood Studios. What the hell is the theme now? Because you got modern day LA, which is the transition into Star Wars, which then transitions into you're the size of a toy, and then you come back out of it in this weird nondescript area, and then there's 30s Hollywood. What? But there's modern Mickey cartoons in 30s Hollywood. What is going on here? What is this?
But
I don't care if you come up with the most ingenious name possible. If you hire 400 focus groups and you sit in rooms and you sequester them until a great name comes out, it still ain't gonna tie this whole thing together because you have destroyed this park to the point where it ceases to exist. It is exactly what they did to Epcot on a grander scale, because at least at Epcot, there are bits and pieces of what was that still exist.
The Chinese
and Spaceship
Theater
Earth is still there to tie the whole thing together. You still have some idea of what the park is because of Spaceship Earth.
And that's a different argument. If you want to try to tie this park together into one cohesive theme.
So what are you saying? It should just be like, here's the park for everything that doesn't fit. We can't fit it in these three. Let's put it in there.
This is
That
amazing.
park doesn't need a theme.
It's a park based on stuff from their movies and shows. Yeah,
This is amazing.
It's an idiotic
The
theme.
Chinese
we
theater,
become Universal Orlando.
the Chinese
at that
theater exists outside of a time period. It's not that square, that area, the center doesn't necessarily have to be 1930s Hollywood anymore.
Yes,
but you're keeping the facade.
Oh my
And
God!
you're keeping
Look at the Chinese theater
1930s
today.
road.
It looks the same.
But the street connected to it is 30s Hollywood.
And when
This
you
is
go to
amazing.
real LA,
Well, maybe they'll put
not that
crappy
way
versions of their
anymore.
walk
It is
around
modern
characters
LA
out there.
and
If
surrounded
they
by this
replace
tiny
Streetmosphere with
little
modern day
theater.
Streetmosphere, I am never going back to Hollywood studios again.
Oh no, I wasn't saying modern day Streetmosphere. I was thinking the knockoff like Iron Man that takes your picture and demands $20.
No, no.
Every moment Tom gave me over the years about Frozen and Avatar or whatever, right now it's coming. He's the one getting all nitpicked and flamed, and I'm loving every second of it.
There's
That's all I wanted
nothing
to
that
say.
takes me out of it going into the Chinese theater and seeing a modern day Mickey cartoon. Nothing about that seems out of place to me.
Well, that's why they should have started with classic Mickey cartoons and ended with the modern day
Right.
version.
And that would have been fine.
Yes, Mickey
Because
through the years. It made sense.
Why are we going into an individual modern Mickey cartoon?
Because that's
Why
what the
after
kids going to the
60
parks
years,
now
After
know.
60 years, why was it decided this is the Mickey Mouse attraction?
And
I don't
maybe
think
maybe kids that are going to go to
Because
this in a
it's
couple of years,
short-sighted.
20 years from now, are going to be arguing that this ride is a classic and should stay forever because
No.
this is their Mickey.
No, as much as I love seeing Tom get his ass ridden right now.
Hey, watch your language.
No, I actually have to agree with him. Kids today know what's the thing that's on right now with the race cars and
Mickey and the Roadster Racers, or
and the club and the club. What's the one that's on?
Mickey Mouse
Yeah.
Clubhouse.
Well,
That's
yeah.
as much. That's as much known as this. People still know Sorcerer Mickey. People still know Steamboat Willie. People still know Runaway Brain. You could have easily
Well,
done
when
that
I was
Mickey through the
teaching
years.
What if that's the
preschool, I
cue?
mean,
Excuse
it
my,
was, it was
my-
probably 10 years removed, but people still knew House of Mouse. Kids
Yeah,
still
no,
did.
it's no one's gonna look at the Adventure Time Mickey and be like,
no.
oh,
Mickey
this-
Mouse
not-
crosses generations. Everybody
Right.
has their own version, and so they should have done something that represented Mickey for everyone, not these cartoons which don't appeal to an older audience at all. And
No.
I do not have a proven shelf life.
Well, neither
You're
does
gonna have
Neither does Avatar. Yet you were all over me for
That's
that.
not replacing
No.
anything.
True. Okay. That's
The
also
only
true,
thing
but-
that's important
And
is
Scott, they proved you wrong in that they built a ride that will stand the test of time, regardless of if no one sees any of those 18 sequels that man made.
Well,
That ride
even
will
if
continue to exist.
that's
true.
even
And
if no one sees a single Mickey short that looks like Ren and Stimpy, this could still be a beloved.
But this replaced a
No.
meet and greet. That replaced a meet and greet. They literally just moved the Lion King show over.
and built it a beautiful theater.
Like,
Listen, I'm just saying. I think you're overreacting. I
if
think
they were
kids are gonna love it.
movie ride, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
I think kids are gonna love it, and I'm gonna be there opening day, and less people in line for me. You know, that's what people say, right? Fine, then don't go because then I get all the pins and whatever they say on Twitter. I'm just loving it.
I think
I love seeing Tom on the defensive. It never happens.
Because this is one of the first things in a
don't
very
tell
long
me
time.
This is the first thing in the
I have disagreed with their decision. I do not agree with this decision at all.
Yeah, you may not agree with it now, but this isn't the first time they're doing something like this. They're throwing off the whole point of World Showcase by throwing a random movie in a random pavilion.
There were already cartoons and rides, though.
It's not Norway. Why not put anything anywhere? Why not put
But
any?
it's similar enough to Norway that it
No,
still
it's
makes
not.
sense.
It doesn't
Yes,
look
it
like.
does.
Let's put Lion King in Italy. Why not? I mean, it's similar enough.
That's
There's animals
not
in.
even
That's
close to the same thing.
There's animals in Italy, and there's animals in the Lion King.
Not
So
the
it's similar.
same animals.
It's the same thing.
I know. I can
Or your
promise you,
dinner.
a 2-year-old knows that
Well,
a
Lion
lion
King
lives in
is in
Africa,
Hamlet.
not Italy.
Well, I'm
Not
sure
with
they
the
don't know
Shakespeare.
Aaron. I'm sure they know Arundel's also not a real thing.
This is
No,
pretty
fuck
amazing.
that too.
What's amazing is Tom being like, no, like Tom being in the position
Aaron
and
Dillon
trying to
is
act like it's
not
different.
real
Great
if you are
movie
too.
ride.
Well, it's not so great.
I'm gonna.
Can I
All
Just
I'm saying
mention-
is they better not close its stuff to be a bug. That's
I know. Then I'm just
I'm
gonna
gonna
never
lead
go
the
to.
campaign just to spite you
go nuts.
because
Can
they're
I-
losing great movie ride.
Can I mention that Universe of Energy is probably my second favorite Epcot
Yeah,
attraction.
we're not talking about that at all.
We're talking about that next week.
Jason, I
I
applaud
would be
you for
more
trying to
than
change
willing.
the subject.
I would be more than willing to give up Universe of Energy to keep Great Movie Ride.
See,
Thank you.
Even though
I
I
didn't
like
disagree,
Universe of Energy
actually.
better than Great Movie Ride, I think Great Movie Ride is an attraction that deserves to stick around.
I don't disagree. I'm just loving watching Tom squirm like this.
No, we're all arguing with Nick, who's the problem.
Oh,
Nick is
Nick's
part
the
of the problem.
problem child.
And Nick's the
Nick's
problem,
always a
unless,
problem.
unless it's you, in which case then everyone else is the problem.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I had enough time. Look, I guess my deal is I know no one's gonna care or agree on this, but I had enough time in my life to enjoy the Great Movie Ride. The memories will be there. It was a great attraction. I want to see more stuff. Would I like it if the Great Movie Ride could stay and the Mickey Ride could go somewhere else? Yeah, I'd love that. But that's not what they're doing, and I'm going to enjoy this Mickey Ride. I think it's going to be a nice addition to the park. We could argue about where it's going. I get that. Like, I'm not dismissing that.
We're not
I
even going to get
totally
into the
get that.
fact that we're losing a 22-minute audio animatronics extravaganza for
Right.
what will likely be a 4 to 5 minute, mostly screen-based ride.
Yeah.
We're not
2.5
get
D.
to that point. Because I think that's the real problem here is we're losing an incredibly detailed, fully realized attraction.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it can't be great because it's screen-based, but I don't
not gonna
believe
have the
that's a
animatronics.
good
Going back to
decision.
the video you shot, the level of detail and just all the little hidden pieces and the time and the care that people clearly put to set up each scene for that ride, with the exception of Starlight Parade or whatever it was. Footlight Parade. I don't see, and I could be wrong, but I don't see how they're going to be able to achieve that same level of detail in what they're talking about doing.
No, you're not.
You're not.
All I
Wait.
know is Imagineering better have on their hands the greatest theme park ride ever built, or there's
No,
going
it's
to
not.
be
Just
a massive
Not, and
revolt.
I think that's the I think
not.
Just
like I said, not necessarily.
It's going to be Journey into Your Imagination all over again.
That's what I said. Yeah, I mean.
So they're gonna
it's
redo the
be-
Mickey ride, but put like James Cagney hopping around
With more, with more James Cagney thrown in.
Like John
There's a whole
Wayne.
finale that's just
Why not?
that's just the Wizard of Oz characters over and over again in different professions.
Yeah,
I mean,
Dorothy as a construction worker.
yeah.
Ian as a ballerina.
it's not necessarily that this is going to be.
Robert Osborne as the moon. Moon Robert Osborne.
Wow.
It's going to be the Journey into the Great Movies with Robert Osborne.
With
Yeah.
you.
And I think they're definitely going to look back and maybe a year from after they've done all of this, and they're going to be like, wow, we screwed up.
No,
Not necessarily.
That's pretty much
not
exactly what happened with
attraction is
Journey into the
terrible.
Imagination.
They got
Disney's
some
not-
complaints.
Disney's not gonna
They
kill.
will have lost.
Hey,
they're gonna
Tom,
look
here's an
back at what
idea.
They lost and be like, that was short-sighted. And we
They're
should have
lo-
put it somewhere else.
They're losing paying cast members to be on the ride. They're losing maintenance of the money it costs to maintain animatronics.
It's
They're
going to be a
not
much
going-
cheaper attraction.
They're not going to regret anything, no matter how many.
There will be animatronics in this ride. It's worth mentioning. It will not be a completely.
Disney is never going to regret this decision as much as we do. No, when we do.
Yeah, and I think again they're in an era where they make such good attractions where it may find success and
Well,
they may do a very good job with it. But I don't.
Here's
I
what
don't-
I think. Here's what I think is going to happen. I don't think that this attraction, whatever it may be, it may be the world's greatest attraction ever, but I don't think it's going to be. And I think their idea is that it doesn't need to be, because this attraction will not be the centerpiece of Hollywood studios come 2019. I think
Well, no,
that's what
gonna
they're
be Star
looking at.
Wars.
That's exactly right. So what they're looking at going into this is we're getting rid of the centerpiece attraction of this park today, but we're not going to replace it with another centerpiece attraction because we're already replacing the centerpiece of this park with something completely different over on the left-hand side. So what we put in here now doesn't need to be of centerpiece quality anymore. So I highly doubt we're going to get any attraction in here that's going to be anywhere near the quality of the Great Movie Ride, because they already know they don't need to do that.
So that basically, like when I was a kid,
that's the wrong way of thinking.
They had a lot of cartoon series where like they'd have the main cartoon, but then there were like during the course of the half-hour show there were other cartoons, but the name of the show would be like,
Are
for
you
example,
referencing Animaniacs?
Garfield and Friends.
Yeah.
Or Animaniacs. So is this part going to be renamed Star Wars and Friends? Is that what it's going to be?
Nice.
Yeah, why not?
That's amazing.
You know, all of this, what's really amazing is I have been a Star Wars fan most of my life.
And now I'm crying.
A lot of this, number one, the spin-off movies, number two, what they're doing to Hollywood studios is starting to make me resent Star Wars to the point where I almost am starting to dislike Star Wars. And it's a scary thing.
Well, you're very cool if you're feeling that way.
No, I'm not trying to be cool. It's sad because I have this shelf of Star Wars stuff at home, and now I look at it, I'm like, I don't really care for you anymore.
Star Wars hasn't done anything wrong.
You've betrayed me.
You're
You
putting
were supposed
feelings
to be the
onto Star-
chosen one.
You can't have lived through
But wait, Tom.
Star Wars is now getting.
You were supposed to make Hollywood studios great, not leave it in darkness.
You're projecting all your feelings about this one ride onto an entire franchise.
Did you feel that way about Rick Moranis after he took over Imagination Pavilion?
Because Rick Moranis didn't turn around and say the rest of Epcot should be bulldozed.
Well, that's Bob
Well, and
Chapek.
to be fair, neither did Star Wars.
Anything. Without the presence of Star Wars Land, none of this happens.
No, it doesn't. Absolutely not.
You don't think so?
This is all based around Galaxy's Edge and all of that. None of
You
this.
don't think the mandate would still come down?
The parking lot doesn't get leveled. The back of the park doesn't get leveled.
Well, no, but I'm saying as far as the Great Movie Ride, you don't think that Chapek still would have had, we need to get these IPs out of here because we don't own
I think they would have updated the Great Movie Ride. I think they would have updated it with some of their franchises. Hell, there were plans in place. A couple of years ago, they wanted to do a pirate scene.
Well, and I agree with that, but I think Chapek himself still would have made the mandate to get those IPs out and could have potentially.
I don't agree with that. If they never bought Star Wars, this park is completely different because there was very different plans in place. There was the Monsters Inc. coaster, and Star Wars was getting a number of smaller little things.
But why would Star Wars have made it go this far left from that original plan of updating movie
It's a
ride?
complete re-envisioning of the park. They've decided the park needs to go an entirely different direction.
Well,
but updating Great Movie Ride versus this doesn't necessarily change anything.
This was most definitely, hey, we got this big Star Wars thing coming in, but we need something else. And the quickest answer was to replace the Great Movie Ride in its 95,000 square foot building, which saves you a lot of time on construction.
But wouldn't it have been easier to little by little change out show scenes?
Not if you want this Mickey Mouse ride. If you want this Mickey Mouse ride, the quickest answer is to pre-built 95,000 square feet of attraction space. It's the quickest answer. Whether or not his goal is to eliminate other IPs, the quickest answer, the same it was with Frozen, the quickest answer is to use an existing space. By using the existing space, you can produce the thing faster before it's irrelevant, which is most definitely the idea with the Mickey Mouse cartoons because it's a current thing. There's no idea if it will remain relevant or not. So the faster you get it out, the more likely it's still a relevant thing to people.
But see, and I think that's where the short-sightedness comes into play, because who's to say that in 5 years the style won't have changed again?
It's valid,
And then
but
what do you do with the old? With all
Then you just
Frozen-
change the films on the
screens
screen.
are easy to change, but what about the animatronics they're making? Are they going to look like classic Mickey, or are they going to look like Ren and Stimpy?
They're gonna
Mickey?
look like garbage, Mickey.
So then you're gonna have to pay to update the animatronics.
But in fairness, I mean, Frozen is great. Frozen is great, and I hate to say this, Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the damn best things I've ever seen. Guardians Mission Breakout is fantastic beyond all explanation.
That was one of the most fun attractions I've been on in a very long time.
It is absolutely unbelievably good. It should have never been that good. Why it's so much better than Tower of Terror, I don't know.
It's perfect. It's so good.
It
It's so much
defies
fun.
logic, but they did a fantastic job.
I hadn't had a smile on my face that much since the Cars Radiator Springs Racers. Like that it was that level.
Well, Flight of Passage.
Flight of Passage, yeah, but I wasn't.
They're all up.
Yeah. It's a different experience, but yeah.
It is, but I think Flight is still
Flight
better.
of Passage was just wow. Guardians and Cars were just fun. Like wow.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, the Great Movie Ride is closing in 12 days, something like that.
Ish.
Yeah. Which I think is really sad, regardless of what's replacing it or anything. I love the Great Movie Ride for a multitude of reasons. I think it was a thing as a family. Everybody in the family loved. We went on it all the time. Grandparents, parents, everybody loved Great Movie Ride. And beyond that, I would have never watched all of those movies if it wasn't for the Great Movie Ride. And I think a lot of those movies define who I am as a person. I can't imagine a life where I don't know what those movies are. Whether in Indiana Jones, I think I would have been exposed to it at some point regardless. But not only that, but opening the door for me for all those older movies, going to search out those movies. And a lot of them, funny enough, I ended up watching on TCM because that's like the only channel that has 90% of those. There were so many other great movies that I found while either, I left the channel on and another movie came on and I ended up watching it and it was amazing. I think about so many of the movies I love were either found through that way or are in the Great Movie Ride, and I only ever discovered by doing that. And it's funny, the Great Movie Ride is the reason why I transitioned in life from growing up. Epcot was far and away my favorite park, and the Great Movie Ride is the reason Hollywood Studios is my favorite park now. Because I could just gain such an appreciation for the golden age of Hollywood and that Art Deco style and the clothing and just everything about that era of Hollywood. And I can't imagine what my life would have been without the Great Movie Ride. And so it's a hard one to let go. And I think this is the first one for me that hits home probably since Journey into Imagination. I don't think there's any other closure that has as big of an impact for me personally. I don't know if anyone else feels any way about that.
I definitely similar.
Shut up, Scott.
I never got to experience Imagination in its original incarnation. I've seen video and I've watched it and I've seen what a train wreck it is now, and so I kind of get the sentiment behind everybody's anger. This will be the first one that it does hit home, and like I said on Wednesday, I don't think I realized or appreciated how attached I was to Movie Ride until I found out it was closing. And then the first thing I did when the story broke was like, I have to figure out which weekend I can get down there before it closes to see it again.
Fun fact, they have had
coming.
They've had more bookings for 2-day vacations since the announcement that the Great Movie Ride was closing.
And see, that should be a clue to them.
They've had an overwhelming amount of weekend bookings.
The amount of money they're going to save means they don't care.
People want to come to see it one last time. That doesn't mean that they would pay money to go see it like every trip. You know what I mean? Like that
shows that it means something to people, which other things did not. There was not an overwhelming number of bookings for Maelstrom,
but that doesn't mean
Backlot Tour.
I mean, and don't get me wrong, I've missed Maelstrom, but I didn't bother to try to go see it. But this one, I laid out my calendar from the date it was closing after the announcement to figure out when I could go.
This is equivalent to when Disneyland lost the People Mover. This is absolutely equivalent.
Because you want to see it one last time, but it didn't draw and excite crowds to the park. There's a
Well,
difference
out of
there.
your mind, it always had a line. It wasn't Universe Energy.
Yeah, the last time I was there, we were going to wait almost 30 minutes to go see it. And
You're
just because I
insane. It's
knew,
regularly 45 to 60 minutes, if not more.
Because it is the marquee ride in the park. I get it, but it's not. It's not the. It's not an attraction that you get excited about while you're booking your trip.
They have Star Wars Land coming.
Yes.
There is literally not a bigger draw on this planet.
Well, that's like you saying people don't get excited about Spaceship Earth.
Park once Star Wars opens. So why they needed to touch the Great Movie Ride, it still doesn't completely make sense to me.
It's a different argument. I'm not arguing. You're saying that people booking these vacations should show to them that people love this ride. They know people love this ride. It shows them nothing.
The people who matter, who can make decisions, do not understand.
They don't care.
Anything
They
of
don't
this
care.
sort.
There's no merchandise sold till now. That's the big key.
They don't care. They're going to make so much money on merch.
Put the Chinese theater
Bob
on the merchandise.
Chapek comes from consumer products, which historically these are people who do not understand the theme park side of things. I'm not saying these people cannot competently run consumer products. They clearly did, but whatever reason,
they can't run a theme park.
They can't. They can and they can't. The reason you bring in people like Pressler and Harris and Bob Chapek is to maximize profits for your existing infrastructure. So the idea is Bob was brought in to look at what they already have and how do you maximize profits on what already exists. And that's why you have seen the rollout of minivans, and they're building transportation systems, and they're redoing existing resorts, and they're adding add-on events and tours and dessert parties and all of these things to existing infrastructure and improving existing infrastructure, because that's what those people can do. That's what they do at consumer products. These people do not understand what makes a theme park a very different beast entirely from every other line of business within the Walt Disney Company.
And not only that, but what separates Disney parks from other parks?
Yeah. They do not understand the intangible things that they cannot see on that spreadsheet when they are looking at numbers. They do not understand those things.
No,
some people come in and get it. Tom Staggs absolutely came in and understood because he let the creative people around him tell him when they were making right or wrong decisions. Tom Staggs is the guy who fought for Avatar, by the way, and now they're making a ton of money from Avatar despite everybody thinking it was the worst idea ever. Tom was a very smart guy who let the people around him do what they had to do. And Bob is more about, hey, we've got these IPs and we should cram them in anywhere they're not in existence. And Pixar Pier at California Adventure is another great example of that. Yeah, you already have an IP there, but literally he has deemed that the IPs they used in California Adventure are not relevant enough to make them money. So he's decided that the more contemporary Pixar IPs have to get into the park over Dumbo and classic Mickey Mouse cartoons and
Little Mermaid.
Whatever else, Mermaids, over whatever other franchise.
I'm talking about the carousel over there.
Yeah, that's true. He's decided that is more important than all the money they spent on infusing classic Disney characters. It's about current IP, and not even they are even against their older IPs at this point.
And that's crazy. Because
it is, because people buy merchandise from plenty of old Disney movies.
Well, and they're leaving out the people that, I mean, yes, I get it. The kids kind of drive a little bit of everything, and you want relevant IPs because then the kids want to go. But again, what sets Disney parks apart is, you have all of these classic IPs, and it's the generational thing. Grandparents can share with their grandkids the kid, things that tie back to when they were kids.
Well, look at DuckTales right now.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
It's
and why Peter Pan's flight can exist alongside, the Little Mermaid ride and why that can exist alongside Frozen Ever After.
You should add new things to the park as new things are.
Yeah, they're absolutely not a museum. I want to talk about the people
to replace everything.
Yeah.
With the new and the current.
The few people that are
classics need
against
to
movie
stay.
rides staying keep going, or it's not a museum and all these things, and that's fine.
If
you run a museum, you have these great older pieces that mean something to people, and then you rotate out other exhibits. But there's always constants. And certainly it's not a museum, and you can update things, and classic rides have been Walt Disney personally, plus the Jungle Cruise and Autopia and several other attractions time and time again. He didn't remove those attractions because people liked them. Instead, he updated them and made them relevant again.
Yes.
And instead, we don't want to do that. We want to rip out things that clearly should stay, like Great Movie Ride and Universe Energy. Again, that one makes sense to me. I understand that one.
It does make me sad, and I hope the
From a corporate standpoint, I can't argue the fact that you don't want to take a stance on energy. I completely understand that in this day and age. That makes sense to me.
Although, I mean, I do hope the dinosaurs find a home somewhere. But I can't argue keeping it. Probably not, but we can hope.
They've taken enough of my childhood away. I'm happy to see them take other people's childhoods away now.
Honestly, that's kind of Tom's made fun of so many people for being upset over stuff removed that now he's finally upset over stuff
Those
removed.
were actually nonsensical things.
No, see, people
if you
care
want to
about
the California Adventure Tower of Terror to the Great Movie Ride, you are mentally deluded.
You are stating your opinion as fact. Like, that's what you're doing. You're making everyone for caring.
Year-old cheap version of a ride that was built better in Florida.
Theme parks is all about subjectiveness and memory and love that you have. People can turn around and say you're being just as crazy as, people had legitimate complaints about Frozen and Avatar, or probably more accurately Guardians Tower, because it all leads to one thing. If this Mickey ride might not have been happening if Frozen and Guardians weren't so amazingly received. You didn't speak up until they came for what you liked, and now you're upset.
Don't invoke that.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
I think
what you care about is more important than what other people care about. That's what you're saying.
So you're telling me that they can just decide to close Peter Pan's flight tomorrow?
Well, they decided to just put Marvel over Tower of Terror randomly, and you were okay
telling
with
me
that.
That's just as okay.
I'm not saying
telling me that if they closed It's a Small World
tomorrow.
Hold on. So we're not in agreement then that some things are sacred in the parks.
Yes, I was the one saying it was dumb.
But clearly they aren't anymore, because look at the redhead scene in Pirates.
Wow.
I wasn't for that either. I was the one getting yelled at because, it's Guardians is amazing. Who cares that it's just an overlay? Frozen's amazing. Who cares it's just an overlay? Well, now
they're comparing Maelstrom and the bad version of Tower of Terror.
That's your opinion.
It's not an opinion.
It
is a fact that the Tower of Terror in California was a cheapened version. People who worked on it will tell you it was a cheapened version.
That ride meant something to someone, how you feel about this. And that didn't stop you from getting on Twitter.
But there are things that meant things to me. Maelstrom meant something to me, but at the same time I looked at it, I said, but this makes sense. I understand this.
But some people say it doesn't. And then you go on Twitter and you deride their opinion, and now your opinion is supposed to be. And listen, I'm not saying the Great Movie Ride should be replaced. I like it, but I think the Mickey Ride should go in Animation Courtyard.
Yeah.
Everything everyone's saying makes sense. I'm just pointing out the irony here, and I'm enjoying it. I'm not gonna lie, but the irony that it's all okay. Every project Disney does is great until it's something that I personally hate. That we all accuse everyone else of doing. Oh, they just want Disney parks to be what they want. That's exactly what's happening here. They don't care.
They don't care about anything. They just want to make money. They
don't care. They do not care. The amount of merch money and the amount of maintenance money they're going to save means they don't care about any sit-in, anything.
But even saying that, I don't understand why they're closing the Great Movie Ride right now. Ellen, like we said, Makes perfect sense because
How
no
that
one ever went
existed
there.
21 years is beyond explanation.
I'm not disagreeing with that either. I even changed my like. I love Universe of Energy, and I think in the long run, losing this theme of Epcot is going to be the overarching theme. Is going to be a sad thing, very much overall. But riding it this last trip, you really can't argue about this specific ride going away. Sorry, my throat's drying out.
I think you're allergic to your own. Never mind.
My own what? My own what, Tom?
Thing I can't say on the show.
Yeah, because it's not what you agree with. Yeah, exactly. You know, and I'm sorry you're getting wrapped up in this too. Tom's a blowhard on Twitter, so he's the one.
No, I was gonna say Marcy had a thought and was trying to finish it.
Go ahead, Marcy. I'm sorry.
I've had several thoughts. I don't even know where I am anymore. It's like 11:30. Wait, what was I? What were we talking about?
Closing great movie ride right now.
Yeah, I really don't understand that. I mean, that park is like a skeleton as it is. The thing eats what, 2,000 people an hour? Like, where are these people going to go? I mean, it just boggles my mind. I mean, I don't understand why they're closing it right now. Ellen, they're closing this. Like, I don't understand. I mean, you're still like Tom said, they're still getting 30 to 60 minute waits. I really don't understand it.
Yeah, it just on a number of fronts, it doesn't make sense. But the creation of the Mickey ride, I understand. The location of it, I do not.
I also just want to put a button on my statement saying I'm not like for them burning down the great movie ride. I understand everything.
Just
Tom's
devil's
saying.
advocate.
And I agree with everything Tom's saying. Again,
Scott just wants his revenge for Frozen Maelstrom.
Yeah, listen, if I'm being honest with myself, yes. Honestly, because
like all the people on Twitter who just want revenge for Tower Guardians, I don't believe that they think the great movie ride should go away. Because it's not a logical line of thought.
I think it's as logical as what you're doing. Honestly, I do. These rides are subjective in terms of what they mean to people. Like we can say
some of them based on popularity or not, though.
Yeah,
all right. I think Tom feels
between Ellen versus.
That's like if you ask anyone if removing the original Journey into Imagination was a mistake, I would be stunned if you find a person that's going to tell you it wasn't.
But honestly, after that happened, stuff like this happens all the time. Like that was I've often stated that's the greatest tragedy in Disney parks history. That kind of opened the door for anything goes, like, because once that happens, nothing, in my opinion, has ever been that bad.
Well, and I think this is the
that's
one
all.
that's going to be.
This is the first one since Imagination that
is
feels
going
like a
to
giant
be
mistake.
Yeah, I think even if the attraction, I think we will be more fortunate than was Imagination in that the attraction itself will be of quality.
Yeah, this isn't happening in an era of garbage.
And it will be a good, overall they will do a good job, but I can't see how once this style of animation falls out of favor and you look back at what you had versus what you're going to be stuck with.
Oh, they don't care.
And you can't look back and say, wow, we screwed up. And I think it's going to be, it's almost like a rubber band. I think they've gone way out again with Chapek, like they did with Pressler and Harris, and they're just looking at the bottom line and the bottom dollar. They're going to start, getting overconfident in their decisions and making some of these missteps. And eventually they're going to make a misstep that doesn't work. It's going to snap back, and then they're going to realize that they screwed up, and they're going to have to do overhauls like they did with DCA.
Guardians probably
you know what?
popular
Building
forever. Like, that's
building with screens is cheap, and they can get rid of it in 10 years if it's useless.
Yeah,
But I don't think that should be justification for ripping out great movie ride.
In
Like,
fairness, we don't know enough
screw it
about
up,
the Mickey
they don't-
ride, I think, to yell about the quality of it yet. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt on the quality of the attraction. I think regardless of the quality, the problem is removing the great movie.
Well,
I agree, but I don't
it
think
sucks.
justification of saying, well, if in 10 years if this style goes out of favor and we need to update it, then we can just change it easy because we're just making a screen ride. That should not be justification for ripping out the great movie ride. Is, well, if we mess it up, we can just.
Well, in fairness, it's always much easier to close the garbage replacement than it is the classic before it. So,
wow.
You don't have to deal with any backlash from people.
Maybe Universal has it right and just don't let things.
But I want to wrap this up on a positive note, so we can just get any final thoughts from anyone on the great movie ride. I don't want to end on a negative note. We're losing this attraction in 12 days. I'd like to end with some positive thoughts about the great movie ride.
I really don't know. Here's the problem. If I could ride this attraction again, if I got more than like 28 days notice that it was closing, I could end this on a positive note. But honestly, I think it's a really jerk move for Chapek to come out and announce that this ride is closing in 4 weeks and not give anybody a last chance to ride on it.
And let's be honest, the only reason we had a chance to say goodbye to Energy, most people, is because sites like WDWNT have been yelling about it for 2 years. Because otherwise, that would have been the same situation where people would have went there and been like, oh, it's closing in 30 days. The great movie ride just didn't sound solid enough for a long time, and then by the time it did, it was way too late.
So, I mean, here's the problem is that, you know, even if I wanted to like Bob Chapek, and even if I wanted to believe that when he says, oh, what we're putting into Energy is going to be consistent with the theme of Epcot, the guy's still a jerk.
It's going to be more Disney, more relevant, more timeless, and more blah, 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 blah.
And Bob Chapek is still either a jerk or a robot or both.
The robot jerk.
I mean, it is really... It really is. I mean, it really is just a crappy move for him to pull. There's no reason.
You should at least give people. It doesn't matter what you're replacing with. You should have gave people proper time, and even the upgrade to Pirates of the Caribbean. They're giving people several months to go ride and see the old redhead scene. But full attractions, they're not giving anyone any time.
It's a jerk move. Chapek's a jerk.
It's from a customer service standpoint, it's a poor way to treat your customer.
Absolutely.
It's one thing to replace the ride. It's another thing to not give people time to spend money to come back to see these things. People would, if given more time, have given them more money to see these things one last time.
Absolutely. If you would have announced it was a good time closing in February or March,
and they could announce it early this year and stuck to August 15th, absolutely, or August 14th, absolutely.
Yeah,
they could have just announced it in January.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just gonna say I'm getting tired. I gotta go to bed. In all seriousness, I'm not just bullying. I just want to give my final thoughts. Busting Tom's butt aside, this is a sad thing that's happening. This is an amazing ride, kind of a pinnacle of Imagineering, and I was more upset about Energy, and I still am upset about Epcot's overarching theme. But riding Energy and hearing Tom and others speak about it, I get it. This is even more important. This is a big, important attraction. I get what everyone's understanding. I am excited for a Mickey ride. I do like Mickey. I wish it was different. I wish it was all eras of Mickey.
I don't think anyone here is going to tell you they don't like Mickey Mouse.
Well, no, I'm just.
That would be absurd.
I have a tendency to ramble and argue, so I'm just summing it up. I think that they don't care in general about, and in what Jason was saying, this was kind of a jerk move because they didn't even announce it at Expo where it was going.
Didn't even say. It was glossed over, which is such a spit in the face.
They kind of even know this is going to be a worse decision, which, in hindsight, even I didn't think it was as bad as Energy. But now that I'm hearing everyone's feelings about it, I can see the emotion that's attached to it. So like I said, teasing Tom aside, this is a big deal. And as much as I wish it was different, it is going to be sad. I'll miss it a lot. Luckily, we have WWNT and Tom's amazing walkthrough video to remember it by.
That's about the highest note you're going to end this on, Tom. We should just cut it right there.
Because honestly,
put that on a DVD.
They're like I want to stress that me teasing Tom was not my personal opinions on it. I think so many of these rides mean so much to everyone, and this one is a big one. This is a big loss that they're doing that they could have easily avoided, that they're not going to avoid for cost reasons. It's sad. Unfortunately, it's what's happening. All we can do is hope that the Mickey ride is good enough to be worthy, because usually that's where the bigger problem lies. Journey to Your Imagination, not as good. Mission Space, I'm sorry, I don't think it's as good. It's when the replacement is not as good that it really becomes irritating. If Guardians turns out to not be good, and this whole lip service of giving Peter Quill a Polaroid at Epcot turns out to be baloney.
Scott, save that for next week.
I know, but I'm just saying, that's when it really stings. So all we can do now is mourn. I don't mean that facetiously. Mourn, miss it, pay our respects, and hope it gets better. On that note, whoosh, I'm going to bed.
Night.
Are there any other thoughts real quick, anybody?
No.
One thing I'm going to miss is, I don't know if you take a look at the beginning, but they start off every ride with "Ready you are," ready, when you're ready, CB.
Ready
and
when you are.
Look, yes, and if you look up, like behind where the cast member is looking, there's a little picture at the top of Cecil B. DeMille.
Yeah.
So something I think that's really going to be missed are all the little things, all the little insider, little nips like that.
It's a detailed Disney attraction, just like Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion, and there's so much detail. And I think those are the hardest attractions to lose, are the attractions with the rich detail and clearly so much love poured into them by the people that designed them. And that's what separates Great Movie Ride from a lot of other rides. Yeah, maybe it was old and outdated. I would not even argue that, but the quality and encapsulates what a Disney theme park attraction is so well.
And I just feel bad because I'm not going to get to ride it before it closes. And it's one of those things where, you know, I grew up going to Walt Disney World with my parents, with my family, with my extended family, and the Great Movie Ride was something that we all did together. We always were able to ride it together. And, you know, I just feel like every time they take something that was original, it kind of chips away a little bit at my childhood and things that I can share now with my kids. And you can share the new things, but it's not going to be the same because it's not what you remember. So sometimes I feel a little bit like emotionally manipulated by Disney because I feel like they bring you in and they
do
want
too good
you
of
to
a
feel like-
job.
I know they want you to feel like you're part of their family and that you can go back generation after generation and see these same things and share them with your kids and share them, you know, generation after generation. But it just, I feel like honestly they should keep some things that will do that always. You know, the parks are not a museum, like we said, they're not. But certain things, like I feel at least one thing per park or one or two things per
Something
park
has to be
always
sacred.
remain. Yeah, they should always remain, no matter.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know,
Well, it's like we were talking about before with Peter Pan. Peter Pan should always be there.
Classic.
Small World should always
Things that permeate
Dumbo
pop culture and mean
be
something to many people should remain.
Yeah.
Pirates of the Caribbean, regardless of any social reasoning or whatever, it's like going back and altering Casablanca. You don't touch that. It's a work of art that a lot of very talented, now long gone people worked on, and you understand it as the time it was built in.
Yes.
And you understand what that is, and there are things that. And again, I'm not even saying you can't update rides. There's just certain things about them, certain things that probably should be preserved in some way.
We're getting off tangent, but you know, with the whole redhead scene, flipping the women and the pirates around as far as who was chasing who was a minor thing. But I mean, changing the redhead scene is changing a quotable, tangible, famous scene from the.
Well, at least Pirates of the Caribbean is staying.
Well, that's true.
Could be worse.
But yeah, it's very different making a minor change to update rather than taking something completely out that, like Marcy said, is something that you shared for generations. I mean, that's a quoted, marketed scene. People, it is in the pop culture. People know that scene, and it's going to be gone.
And you know what? It may not be politically correct, but I feel like when we go over and gloss over and erase,
that's when you
can't
forget.
erase. You can't do that. Because it still happened. It was still part of the culture. It was still part of our history. So I feel like you really need to open up the dialogue about things like that and say, you know what?
Yeah.
This scene is controversial. Why is it controversial? Because of this. Because this is what it represents, and it's not right. But this is what happened. This is where we came from. Instead of
You're
just
not going to learn.
You're
not going to learn your history.
If you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah, you're not going to learn from your history if you just cover it up.
But in this case, like, we're supposed to be kind of empathizing with the pirates the whole ride. That's, I think, the issue here.
I don't really want to get into this pirate conversation. I think we're getting a little off.
No, it's
great movie ride is, but I think the point really is that something in the park should be sacred, and the fact that you have a 28-year-old park that doesn't have anything left of what it was is kind of sad. It's kind of like you spit all over your entire history and said, basically telling people this park was a mistake, which it never was. People joke about the amount of stuff there is to do in Hollywood studios. Park was very successful for a very long time. It's a silly idea.
Is Little Mermaid and maybe Indy the only things that are left as far as attractions or shows go that's original?
Voyage didn't open until 1992. Indy didn't open until August of 89. So there is not an opening day ride remaining.
Left.
Nope.
Movie ride will be it.
Indy will be the oldest. The second oldest will be Star Tours, which was December of 89. And who knows if that's going to stay in 2 years? Who knows?
Well,
we don't know. There's nothing sacred. So, Nick, I want to sit here with you in 2 years when they're ripping out Star Tours, and we're going to see how you feel about it. How about that?
When they put, I care about that ride.
The Iron Man experience in there.
Star Tours.
But only based on the Disney XD series on Iron Man and not the movie.
But yet, hey, Tomorrowland Speedway is staying. That's a good thing.
Thank God the Tomorrowland Speedway survived.
Do Star Wars Rebels inside Star Tours.
Any final thoughts, positive thoughts on the Great Movie Ride? I want to go out nicely.
We tried that already.
I am very grateful that I will get to be down there to say goodbye. And I will miss it dearly, and I can only hope that the Mickey ride is as good as everything else that Imagineering has been turning out the past couple years.
What's your favorite scene that you'll miss the most, everybody?
Oh, God.
It's like
that is hard.
Child.
The exploding bank.
There was that.
I love the Indiana Jones scene, but I'm a sucker for Indiana Jones.
Why does it have to be snakes?
There was so much excitement when you got that, when we wrote it a lot and you got that Western scene, because it wasn't common for so long.
Yeah.
It was gone for years. I think they probably did it during peak times at the
even now they don't even do it after like 3 o'clock or something.
No.
It's
gotten it in 20 years.
Yeah.
I got it in my last time, and that was because it was in the middle of the Christmas season. And that was late at night.
Yeah, it's always been an afternoon ride for the last few years, so I never saw it. But it was truly something that defined a park, defined an era of its design, and
I feel like that park is like
what
I feel like Studios is dead now. Like it's not.
It's certainly getting its soul.
Like Tower feels like this weird abandoned orphan now that everybody else watched all its friends die, and now it's just standing there like, well, now
which
what?
Ironically fits into the theme of it.
Oh, stop it.
It's just a very weird. It's weird to have an entire original park. Like I said, even Epcot, still has Spaceship Earth and American Adventure and Living with the Land and the buildings. I mean, for now are still there with Communicore, and then even the new attractions are in so many of the old building stuff. But Hollywood Studios has just been decimated.
Well, I guess
Almost beyond recognition in most places. Even driving in, it's scary. I'm like, where am I? It's barren wasteland, and it's.
Although trying to go out on a good note, there are. We do still have Hollywood Boulevard.
Gertie survived. Thank God.
Gertie's still there.
That's not even a joke. Thank God for Gertie the dinosaur.
And you can.
If they touch Gertie, that's it. We're done. We're rioting.
But no, you can still go into the Carthay. I know it's just a store, but you can go in and
Hollywood
hear. Yeah, you can.
And we still have Streetmosphere. Streetmosphere holding on.
Yeah, there are still some tiny pieces.
Yeah.
Of old studios, but I do think less so than Epcot now. Most definitely.
Oh yeah, Epcot fared much better.
Yeah.
Than even through this next phase. I'll already go out on a limb and say Epcot fared much better.
It's an inherent problem. It's an inherent problem with basing something on such, at the time, pop culture. Even the Great Movie Ride had so many 80s
Not even pop culture. The
references.
problem is both parks, their themes fell apart. The world stopped caring about World's Fairs, and when they went to theme parks, stopped caring about the betterment of the outside world because they went to theme parks to escape it. And then the problem with Hollywood Studios was it was built upon the idea of a working movie studio, and it didn't pan out. And it happened at Universal too. Universal, the same thing. That park actually was somewhat coherent when it opened, and now it's just this amalgamation of whatever the hell they could do at the time.
Yeah.
The only reason E.T.'s hanging on is Steven Spielberg.
That's not even true.
It's not. Steven Spielberg told them to rip it out.
Yeah. It's not even a real thing.
But no,
it's held on because they have a lot of people who have fought for it. I think especially people in Universal Creative have fought to keep E.T. alive.
I think the problem, it's really an issue when your park has lost its centerpiece attraction and it's lost every opening day attraction it's ever had. I don't think there's a Disney park in existence that doesn't have at least one opening day attraction.
There's not.
Mm-mm. Well, now there will be. But...
And now there will be. And even Universal has opening day attractions.
E.T. That's it.
And the makeup show. It's
horror makeup. Yeah. No, it counts.
So when you've
was horror makeup an opening day? I thought they were a little later.
I think it was.
Maybe. It was close.
When you've got Universal beating Disney in the category of keeping attractions around that mean something, it's a sad day. It absolutely is a sad day.
They should have, and that's the problem. Is one should have stayed in Great Mover was the last one, and why it doesn't have to go.
It doesn't have to. No,
and I think
doesn't have to.
That may be the bigger problem. Is for what they're replacing it with.
It's removal for the sake of removal.
Yeah, they could have built a new building. They could have found a different home.
It's not like there's not space. There's
they didn't
plenty of soundstage buildings in that park.
And
the warehouse they wanted that 95,000 square feet is the problem.
Yep.
A warehouse can go up so quick.
Yeah.
The problem is they can't get away with building a warehouse now. If it's an existing warehouse, that's fine. They couldn't get away in this day and age with building a ride in a new warehouse. No one would have let them get away with it.
I still feel like they could have found a soundstage that's there to put it in. Maybe not.
None of them are 95,000 square feet.
Well, no.
This is the other thing about this Mickey ride. This Mickey ride is not a one-off. This is going other places, and it's going to be large plots at other places. And so they wanted.
So is this Shanghai's fault?
It's supposed to be a big hang now. No, because it's going to Disneyland next. Disneyland's the next place it's going. Probably California Adventure. This ride is going to be a thing they build a lot of, and it's supposed to be a headliner. And when Kevin Rafferty came out, he immediately said, like Pirates and Mansion. It's going to have its own score and its own song. And we're doing a big ride like those.
I think that's the other part that stings, is that they're equating that with those, and
I mean, it could be. We haven't seen it.
Yeah, it could be.
We don't know
but-
until it's
but-
done.
Well, and that's the thing.
I still think, even if it's like the most amazing thing, I still think there will be this part in everyone that misses the great movie ride.
There will be. And if it's one thing to say, oh, this is a big ride like Mansion and Pirates. Mansion and Pirates weren't the biggest things ever when the Imagineer behind them said it 3 years before they opened.
It's true.
You can't.
They just opened and became those things.
Yes,
Yes,
they were
exactly.
proven over the test of time.
And no matter how good Kevin Rafferty is at what he does, him saying that this new Mickey ride is going to be the greatest thing on par with Mansion and Pirates doesn't make it true. It doesn't make Kevin Rafferty can't predict the future any better than we can, even if he knows exactly what this attraction is going to be.
Either way, it's obviously very sad that we're losing the great movie ride. I think the attraction meant a lot to a lot of people, and it always will. Yeah, I think that the overall thing is it's not even just losing the great movie ride. I think it kind of feels like we're losing the studios park.
I think we are.
Yep.
And I think everyone was all right with Star Wars and everything else, and it was like, well, the great movie ride's still there, so there's still some MGM there. And it's the same way when you go to Epcot and you're like, it's not what it was, but there's Spaceship Earth. Oh, there's American Adventure.
And even as much as we hated the refurb of Spaceship Earth, it's still there.
It's still there.
Birds, yeah.
Could be worse. It could be gone. It could be Time Racers, right? Could be worse.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, obviously a lot of love for the great movie ride. I don't know how I'm going to make it through August 13th. We'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting day, to say the least. But thank you everyone for joining us. I know this was a particularly long Back to the Future, but is hopefully agree a meaningful and important attraction and deserved a proper send off in the only way we know how here at WDWNT. So with that, I'm not going to say you could take it away, McFly. I'm going to say ready when you are, CB.
Whoosh.